I surprised my girlfriend with Taylor Swift tickets. She wanted to bring her friend instead. Me and my girlfriend, both 26, have been dating for 3 years now. My girlfriend is a huge Taylor Swift fan and was really excited when she found out Taylor would be performing at MetLife Stadium, right near us. I decided to surprise her with Taylor Swift concert tickets, since I knew she really wanted to go. I called in sick the day the tickets dropped and waited in the Ticketmaster queue for 2 hours. Finally, when it opened up, I bought 2 seats, for $400 each, presumably one for her, and another for me. When she came back from work that night, I surprised her with the tickets, and she was ecstatic. However, when I claimed I was excited to go with her, she got very confused and claimed she thought the 2 tickets were for her and her best friend, who is also a big Taylor Swift fan. I was very disappointed since I believed that this was an experience we could do together and it would be something we would remember for the rest of our lives. My girlfriend could tell I was upset and said she would be happy to go with me instead. I told her she should go with whoever she wanted to go with more, and to not go with me just because it was what I had planned. After hearing this, my girlfriend immediately called her friend and told her that they were going to the Taylor Swift concert together. Ouch. I told my girlfriend that if her friend wanted to go with her she had to pay the $400 for the ticket, and her friend agreed to. While my girlfriend and her friend went together and both had a great time, I felt betrayed since she chose her over me. While I know my girlfriend's BFF is a much bigger Taylor Swift fan than me, I was still excited to go since I've never been to a concert before, and I like to listen to some of Taylor Swift's songs. Like I said before, I also believe this would be a memory we could both remember together. Should I have done things differently and not given up my ticket so willingly? Second story. I thought she took me to the restroom to have sex. I was wrong. Nonfiction. In college I met a girl at a house party. We drank and talked. Drank and talked. Drank and talked. Starting kissing. Tongues and all. She asked me to the restroom with her. Of course, I said. She took me by the hand and led me away. I went in first and she shut the door behind her and locked it. I was certain things were about to go to the next level. She said hang on and unzipped her pants. Sat down on the toilet. I thought she had to pee. Then she grunted. I heard a fart. Then a plop. Third story. My husband is a human gas chamber. Venting. So, about 3 weeks ago I flew to South Korea for a vacation with friends who live there. My husband didn't want to go and said he'd be fine staying home and watching the house and dog. I trusted him because he's a 40-year-old adult man and assumed he'd be able to feed himself like a sane person despite him possessing the cooking ability of a cactus. I was wrong. I should have dragged him and the dog along with me to another country. What my husband decided to do during his 3 weeks without me was absurd. I would have been happier if he'd cheated on me instead. Because what he did was, order nothing but Taco Bell through DoorDash after he, somehow broke my stove by, cooking an entire 15-pound bag of red lentils all at once. Then he didn't bother to get a bowl for his lentils, he just ate them straight from the pot and stuffed the pot into the fridge and broke one of the shelves inside it. Now realizing his mistake, he decided to order nothing but terrible tacos for the remaining 2 weeks while getting high on medical marijuana. Also, for some reason he bought a bunch of honeycombs from one of our friends' fathers and decided those made a good snack and has eaten nothing but beeswax and honey for the last few days because he's some kind of weird alien in a human disguise. Apparently honeycombs give you gas. And lentils give you gas. And Taco Bell gives you gas. So now it's today and I'm awoken by what sounds like someone revving a motorcycle in my bedroom, followed by the stench of the fiery pits of hell itself. It's 5:30 in the morning. He gets up and goes to use the toilet as I'm opening the windows in a poor attempt to ventilate the house, but it's too late. He doesn't even have a solid poop, it's just 10 minutes of gas. Like 20 seconds of non-stop farts followed by a huge gasp of air and then another 20 seconds of gas. By this time, the dog has hidden under my couch because it doesn't know what those loud honking noises are and fears for its safety. I consider joining it, but continue to open every window in my house. It's 62 degrees out and windy. The wind just blows the fart smell around the house. My husband has left the bathroom and has walked upstairs. It sounds like there's a small two-stroke engine in his pants. I can't take it anymore and scream that I'm going to get breakfast at the diner and leave him. I bring the dog with me because the dog follows me out of the house because it also doesn't want to be here right now. So now I'm at the diner waiting for my husband to degas himself while the dog sits underneath the table next to me wearing a pink leash kit harness that my friends bought for me as a gag gift that has my name and emotional support human on it that the waitress thought was some kind of in-joke. This is the start of my morning. I hope it's not as stinky as yours. Fourth story. I slept with my therapist. Venting. I never thought I'd be in this position, but here I am. I'm consumed with guilt and honestly a little confusion. I've been seeing my therapist for about a year, and he specializes in eating disorders, which is something I've struggled with for a long time. Over time, our sessions became more personal and emotional. It started with longer eye contact and his comforting touch on my shoulder. After one particularly intense session, he hugged me for a little too long. The line began to blur, and I started to develop feelings for him. One evening, after a deeply personal conversation about my progress and how I wish I had someone to celebrate with, he invited me to grab some drinks. I thought it was just him being kind and supportive, but in the back of my head I honestly hoped he'd confirm having similar feelings that I'd been having. We sat closer than usual, at one point he even reached out to hold my hand. I could feel the tension between us. He complimented my progress and told me how proud he was of me. That's honestly what sent me even further into this intense feeling of lust. His words were soothing, and before I knew it, we were kissing. It felt surreal, like a dream. One thing led to another, and we ended up going back to his place and sleeping together. I know it was a huge ethical breach, and now I'm struggling with my emotions. I'm terrified of the consequences and that I now need to look for a different therapist. I'm never good at starting over. What I'm going to do, I just needed to tell someone. Fifth story. I, 32M, am divorcing my wife, 33F, after finding out that my son, 5M, is not mine. Nonfiction. Well, a couple of weeks ago I found out that my wife cheated on me 6 years ago. The way I found out is that her sister told me after going to visit her to find out how the delivery of her first child was. She confessed to me that 6 years ago my wife told her that she slept drunk with her best friend. In her words, my wife was very sorry. At the time she told me I was with my son, and immediately after leaving her house I went to take a paternity test with him, fearing the worst. A week later I get the results and my fears came true. My son is not mine. For some reason, I began to see the boy differently, more as an acquaintance than a son. With proofs in hand I confronted my wife at night when the child was sleeping. She asked me who told me and I simply told her that it is none of her business, although obviously it will not take long to connect the dots that it was her sister. Well, that is not my problem now. Regardless of that, I asked her for a divorce, which is now in process. She was devastated. She swore to me more than once that nothing happened with anyone again, that she has been faithful to me in body and soul since then. I held back the urge to insult her to avoid complications during the divorce issue, not believing a word she said, mostly blaming the alcohol instead of taking the blame herself. After talking about it, she threatened me saying that she would demand full custody of the child. I was so annoyed at that moment that I told her okay, I don't want anything to do with something that is not mine, that she keep the child and I'll keep the dogs. We have 2 dogs that we adopted as puppies and they are currently 8 years old each. After my word she tried to convince me to take care of the child with her, that I am his father. At that moment I exploded. I was so angry and I had held back so much the urge to scream that I just yelled her to go and take her bastard with her. A week has passed since that and I am at home. It is in my name because it is a gift from my parents. She went to her parents' house with her kid. She has not called me since then. She left with everything and the half-asleep kid when I yelled at her, especially since it was the first time I really yelled at her. It sure affected her. I talked to my parents and my dad told me that I did the right thing and that I shouldn't be raising something that is not of my blood, and I agree with him. However, the pain is still there. My younger brother told me to write here to entertain myself. I am currently seeing a therapist 3 times a week, who told me that I have already taken the first step, which was to leave behind what causes me pain. It just hurts to know that my family no longer exists. Regarding why my sister-in-law told me everything, according to her, she felt guilty seeing me always happy with my son, knowing that he may not be mine, and that the fact that we went to visit her in a moment of weakness caused her to completely break down with guilt. I don't know how true that is, I just know that right now I feel tremendous hatred for my wife and a feeling between pain and resentment for the child, although it's just time to get ahead. I just hope the divorce goes smoothly. We have separate financiers and properties, and if she really asks for child support I have proof that it's not mine. According to my lawyer that's more than enough if she tries a legal process for that. My therapist also recommended that I not see him nor her, that regardless of the child's feelings, I should focus on my own first, that the child is no longer my problem and the sooner I accept it, the better. Sorry for the misspellings, English is not my first language. 6th story. I slept with my therapist. Venting. I never thought I'd be in this position, but here I am. I'm consumed with guilt and honestly a little confusion. I've been seeing my therapist for about a year, and he specializes in eating disorders, which is something I've struggled with for a long time. Over time, our sessions became more personal and emotional. It started with longer eye contact and his comforting touch on my shoulder. After one particularly intense session, he hugged me for a little too long. The line began to blur, and I started to develop feelings for him. One evening, after a deeply personal conversation about my progress and how I wish I had someone to celebrate with, he invited me to grab some drinks. I thought it was just him being kind and supportive, but in the back of my head I honestly hoped he'd confirm having similar feelings that I'd been having. We sat closer than usual. At one point he even reached out to hold my hand. I could feel the tension between us. He complimented my progress and told me how proud he was of me. That's honestly what sent me even further into this intense feeling of lust. His words were soothing, and before I knew it, we were kissing. It felt surreal, like a dream. One thing led to another, and we ended up going back to his place and sleeping together. I know it was a huge ethical breach, and now I'm struggling with my emotions. I'm terrified of the consequences and that I now need to look for a different therapist. I'm never good at starting over. What I'm going to do, I just needed to tell someone. 7th story. A quick story about my dating policy for my daughter. Nonfiction. When my daughter was 5 years old, and just starting kindergarten, I would occasionally tell my daughter, just remember, no dating and no boyfriends until you turn 30 years old. Wishful thinking, I know. I told her this her first day of kindergarten, and she replied, "Okay, Daddy." Then I would tell her the same thing every once in a while. Not too often to be annoying, but often enough that she knew my rule. Then one day, later in the school year, it may even have been when she was in 1st grade, as I was getting ready to drop her off at school, once again I said to her, "Remember now, no dating and no boyfriends until you turn 30 years old." This time she had a totally different reply. She turned to me, and looked right at me with those eyes that she could use to get whatever she wanted from her dad, and said, "Well, if I get good grades all through school and college, can I start dating when I am 29? It took all the willpower I had to not smile and start laughing when she asked that. With a very serious look on my face, I showed her that I was taking a moment to consider what she had just asked. Then I replied to her, "Well, okay, you've got a deal. If you get good grades all through school and college, I will let you start dating at 29". She replied, "Okay, Daddy," got out of the car, and bounced her way on into school for the day. For those who are going to ask, yes, she waited till she was 29 to start dating, because she always followed Daddy's rules. Just kidding. She had her first boyfriend at around 13 years old, breaking her daddy's heart. Upvote 11K. Downvote 3.2K. Go to comments. Next story. 4 days ago my coworker who's also my friend fell down the stairs and died in front of me. Non-fiction. 4 days ago I was walking with a coworker on a break just to stretch our legs. We work in an office setting so like to get up every once in a while and get some fresh air. We walk in a half circle around the building. In the back there are stairs that we like to go down and then back up on our way back for exercise. It's 2 sets of 15 concrete steps. It was a beautiful sunny day with blue skies. Near the top of the stairs we were in mid-conversation while heading down and all of a sudden I hear him go, "Oh God," and trip and fall somehow. He rolled down and landed at the bottom in a heap, face first in the concrete. I just stared for a few seconds because it was so sudden. I ran to the bottom while asking if he's okay, but he didn't move or respond. I got close and realized there was blood coming from his head and face and his arms and legs were seized up and stiff when I tried to roll him over. I freaked out but managed to call 911 while also texting another coworker friend of mine to come outside the office because our friend fell. 911 told me to roll him over and do CPR while they came, which I did. The ambulance got there about 7 minutes after I called and took him to the hospital, but I'm 99% sure he was already dead when I was doing CPR. I feel really weird about it. Like sad, but also just strange. It's hard to put into words. It doesn't seem real. I will get flashes where I realize what happened and feel an intense tightness in my chest and the severity of it hits me. I keep imagining him laying at the bottom of the stairs face down, and also his torn up face when I was giving him CPR when he was already dead. It's also just really sad because he was one of my best friends at work. I've barely slept since Tuesday and was full of adrenaline for a full day after it happened. He was single with no kids or anything. Only has a brother and father who live in other states. I don't really know why I'm writing all this, but I just feel really strange and am wondering if anyone ever experienced something like this. Edit, didn't expect this post to get so much traction. I appreciate all the advice and positive thoughts sent my way. It saddens me that many of you have similar experiences. I can't respond to every comment, but I am reading every single one. Thank you. Next story. Next story. I just found out why my wedding started late and I love my husband more because of it. Fiction. My husband, John, Bucky, M26, and I, F24, just returned from our week-long honeymoon 2 weeks ago. We call my husband Bucky because he resembles the character from the MCU movies. My Bucky is a bit more yummy. Yesterday was the first time we had dinner with his family since the wedding. My sister-in-law, F20, is my favorite person besides my husband, which is why she was my maid of honor. She took me aside and told me what happened behind the scenes at my wedding. A bit of background first, my mother-in-law, F48, never liked me, and she didn't hide it from me, though she did hide it from her son. This started from the moment we began dating. She would play nice in front of him but make nasty comments as soon as he was out of sight. At first, I didn't say anything to Bucky, hoping that, in time, his mother would warm up to me. But it never stopped. Eventually, I had enough and started telling Bucky. Bucky spoke with his mother, but she claimed I was misunderstanding her. She didn't stop, she just became subtler, saying things that could be interpreted in multiple ways. I don't blame Bucky, he did believe me, but he also believed his mother when she said she meant something else. When Bucky proposed, I thought that would be the end of it, but she only got sneakier. I almost called off the wedding because I couldn't handle it anymore. We had arguments, and it was frustrating. Bucky always believed me but didn't believe it was his mother's intent to be hurtful. Somehow, we got through it and started planning the wedding. My sister-in-law helped with the wedding planning and preparations, and because my mother-in-law was minimally involved, everything was perfect. From my perspective, everything went as planned on the wedding day, though we started a bit later. Bucky told me it couldn't be avoided because something important came up last minute. I assumed it was work-related, so I didn't ask. But now I've heard from my sister-in-law what actually happened. I was in the bridal suite, so I didn't see or hear any of this. My mother-in-law arrived at the venue wearing white. When Bucky found out, he asked my sister-in-law to bring her to his ready room, along with his other siblings and father. When my mother-in-law walked in and tried to hug him, Bucky stopped her. He asked what she was wearing, and when she dismissed it, he repeated the question differently: why was she wearing white at his wedding? Why was she trying to hurt his soon-to-be wife? Why was she trying to ruin his wedding day? I think phrasing it as his day rather than my day got to his mother. He reminded her that it was his wedding too. She still tried to dismiss it, saying he was overreacting and it was just a dress. That's when he lost it. He started yelling at his mother, saying that he now realized I wasn't misunderstanding her, she was deliberately being hurtful to me. He yelled that he had been defending her to me all this time, but now it was clear that I was the one who needed defending. He accused his mother of trying to sabotage his relationship. When my father-in-law tried to say something, Bucky shut him down, saying he didn't want to hear it because they had stood by and enabled her behavior. Bucky then told his mother, "Because you're my mother, I'm willing to postpone the wedding by half an hour to give you a chance to change. I don't care if you go home, to a store, or wherever. Just leave now and only come back when you've changed. If you refuse, you will never see me, my wife, or our future children ever again." Do I make myself clear? The wedding was perfect, and my mother-in-law wore a blue dress. I don't know how to thank this man enough. His birthday is in 3 months, and I'm going to have to plan something extra special. Next story. I ruined my husband's Thanksgiving. Fiction. Okay, I know I might sound like a lunatic here, but after what my, now ex-husband Jake pulled, I think I was justified. Buckle up, because this Thanksgiving wasn't about gratitude, it was about revenge. So, Jake and I had been married for 6 years, and I thought things were fine. But 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I found out he'd been screwing Megan, his coworker, a wannabe Instagram model with the personality of soggy bread. How did I find out? She left her lipstick in his jacket pocket. When I asked about it, Jake stammered something about a group Halloween party. Spoiler alert, they weren't playing dress up, unless sleazy side piece counts as a costume. I did my homework. Dug through his phone when he fell asleep early, and bingo, texts, photos, even videos. Not only was he cheating, but he had been bragging about it to his friends. Stuff like, "She's hotter than Sarah," and "Finally found someone who doesn't nag me." Oh, but it gets worse, he invited her to our Thanksgiving dinner because she doesn't have family nearby. Instead of kicking him out right then, I smiled, kissed his lying face, and said, "Of course, babe. The more, the merrier." Thanksgiving was my Super Bowl now, and I was going all out. I prepped every dish with care, but I had a few secret ingredients to add some spice. Megan was all smiles when she showed up with her dollar store wine, acting like she wasn't sleeping with my husband. I played nice, complimented her dress, which screamed clearance rack, and made sure she got a front row seat to the drama. When everyone sat down for dinner, I kicked things off with a toast. I just want to say how thankful I am for family, for friends, and for clarity. You see, I've recently learned so much about myself and the people I thought I could trust. Jake, Megan, I locked eyes with them. This is really your moment. Cue the awkward silence. Then, I pulled out my laptop connected to the TV. Oh yes, I made a PowerPoint. With screenshots of their texts, photos of them sneaking around, and a particularly spicy video of Megan doing, well, let's just say something that made Jake's mom scream, "Oh my God." The table exploded. Jake was yelling, Megan was crying, his parents were mortified, and my mom just sat there sipping her wine like she was watching her favorite soap opera. But I wasn't done. "Oh, and Megan," I said, cutting through the chaos. "I wanted to make sure you felt special today. So, I made you something. I went to the kitchen and came back with a casserole dish. Everyone watched as I dramatically removed the foil, revealing a pile of raw turkey guts, the kind they pull out before selling. I call this homewrecker surprise. Enjoy. Then I dumped the entire dish onto Megan's lap. The sound she made was somewhere between a shriek and a gag. She bolted from the table covered in blood and slime. Jake tried to follow her, but I stopped him. "Oh, you're not going anywhere. You see, I packed your stuff. It's in the garage. Also, I called your boss and let him know what a great team player you are. Don't worry, he'll be reviewing those videos personally." His face went pale. He didn't even try to argue, just slunk out like the pathetic loser he is. His mom started crying, his dad apologized to me, and my mom raised her glass and said, "Best Thanksgiving ever." Next story. Sil gave herself an enema with coffee. Non-fiction. My Sil is not smart, to put it kindly. She has done some very idiotic things during the course of my husband and my relationship, but this takes the freaking cake. Sil is incredibly gullible and believes literally anything she reads on the internet. Well, she read that if you give yourself an enema with coffee it can help cleanse toxins from your body. Cue collective eye roll. BL comes home one day to a scary-looking mess in the bathroom, what appears to be blood-soaked pads, towels, etc. BL freaks out and immediately begins asking Sil what happened and if she's okay. Sil gets very cagey and avoidant of his questions. BL continues panicking, thinking something is incredibly wrong and Sil needs to go to the ER. Finally, BL gets her to spill. After reading on the internet that it is healthy and beneficial to give yourself an enema with coffee, she decided to try it. Only she missed one very important step in letting your coffee cool down first before you try to insert it into your asshole. So Sil gave herself an unsuccessful enema with hot coffee and literally burned her rectum. She refused to go to the doctor out of embarrassment. This is my favorite story that I have ever had the pleasure of hearing in my life, and now it gets to grace Reddit as well. Edited to add BIL in this post is Sil's husband. Sorry for the confusion, I should have written that part better. Sil reluctantly relayed this story to my husband, her brother, at great urging from her husband. Edit. This happened months ago and as far as I know Sil has not suffered any side effects from this. We are no longer on speaking terms due to how she decided to treat my husband, my mother-in-law, her mother, and myself. It was not actually blood on the towels and pads but a coffee/poo mixture. Next story. I'm dealing with depression and I always try to hide it from my 3-year-old son. Today I couldn't hide it and I am so proud of his reaction. Venting. Had a rough morning this morning. Dealing with depression. I'm in therapy for it and taking medication, so I'm on the road to recovery, but I still have tough days. This morning I had a breakdown. I was being really down on myself and had a lot of self-disgust. But my son needed a wipe for his runny nose. So I went to get him one and accidentally spilled something on the way. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. I collapsed on the floor and started sobbing. Normally I try my best to do my crying out of my son's view. I don't want him to worry about his dad. I want to be a rock for him. Strong and stable. But in this moment I couldn't help it. But when my son noticed me crying I couldn't have been prouder. He came up to me and said, "Why are you crying, Daddy?" And I said through my sobbing, "I don't know." He gave me as big of a hug as his little arms could and he said, "It's okay, Daddy." He ran over to his wipes and brought them over to me and tried to dry my eyes. He asked me to blow my nose. I did. He grabbed the tissue from me and said, "It's okay, I throw that away for you, Daddy." I grabbed him and gave him the biggest squeeze. He said, "You better now," and I said, "I'm better now. I'm so lucky." Edit. Thank you all for your support. Red heart hugging face. I wasn't expecting all this attention, so again thank you all and I will promise to be strong. Red heart flexed biceps. Next story. My wife got pregnant with another man's kid, and thinks I don't know about it. Nonfiction. Me and my wife have been together for more or less around 5 years. I had met her at work, she was the manager and I was one of the line cooks working in the back kitchen. I had my suspicions when we first had our son. We decided that it was best I become a stay-at-home dad while she worked, as she had made so much more money than I did as she was a general manager. First she started saying things like she had to go to work parties as it was mandatory, or she'd be fired, or she was staying late at work because people had called off and it was busy. One day she had come on to me being very flirty and persuading me to have sex with her. Now that I look back, I think she was already pregnant at this point and wanted it to look like I had gotten her knocked up. Of course, like any man would, I fucked her and came inside. About a month later she was telling me she was pregnant. I was cool with it, why not? When it came down to having our second son, I noticed that about a year into it, he looked nothing like me or my wife. Keep in mind we are both white, I have blonde hair and brown eyes, my skin is super pale and my wife is just almost the same. This kid, the more he grew, was really dark-skinned Mexican hair and looked like one of the guys you'd see from the Mexican Revolution with the big ol' mustaches. I mean, when I say Mexican, he looked like the typical stereotype of one. I'm thinking about getting a DNA test and leaving her because there's no way it's mine. Next story. How my son changed. Nonfiction. I, 45F, adopted my son, 21M, when he was 12. He came from an abusive household and it took him a little bit to warm up to me. I remember one day, my cousin, 42M, was visiting. My son had only been with me for 6 months and he was still pretty reserved. I was worried about him and I was terrified that I was doing something wrong. And then my cousin said something that will always stay with me. My cousin said, "He's okay now, it's just taking him a bit to get comfortable because he's been through some things. He has a good mom now." My son started warming up to me shortly after that and he's grown so much. I've noticed that he's been way happier and way less reserved, and he's a firefighter now and I'm so proud of him. When I first adopted him he was this short, scrawny kid and now he's so tall. He's muscular now, too, because he's a firefighter. He was 5 feet 4 inches when I first adopted him and now he's 6 feet 2 inches. I'm only 5 feet 9 inches and I have to look up when I talk to him. He grew so much and it was so gradual that I didn't notice until recently. He has a kind soul and he's a genuinely good person. I'm so proud of the person he's become and who he is today. Next story. My partner cheated and I lost everything. Venting. I, 24F, and my XL, 27M, had been together for 6.5 years and had started dating when I was an undergrad. He moved with me to a new city for my graduate degree where we adopted 2 cats and got engaged January of 23. He had met B, 20F, at work and we all became close friends. We let her stay with us for a week when she needed to escape her ex and helped her move into her new place. In June, L started a massive argument right before we went on vacation and broke the news that he thought he was poly and wanted to be able to explore this, or he thought he might have to leave me at some point. I'm extremely monogamous and this made me very uncomfortable, but to save my relationship I agreed to try things out casually with B, because I'm bi and I trusted her enough to be vulnerable. My one rule was that nothing sexual should happen with her while the other wasn't there. Fast forward several weeks and he is spending a ton of time with her when I'm not around, including when I'm out of town with friends. When I got back, my anxiety that something had happened was overwhelming and I had a breakdown asking if he had cheated while I was gone. He blew up saying he was hurt, and barely spoke to me for a week. One night I couldn't sleep and went through his phone, for which I had standing permission to do, and found out he had sexted her multiple times while I was in the room, which broke all my rules. I confronted him with the evidence and instead of trying to work it out he said he was moving out. This moving out process took a month. After attempting to remain friends, B blew up at me. B threatened me, told me I was a horrible person, that I was pathetic, and mocked me on social media before blocking me. L stayed living in our apartment, sleeping in my bed, and spending time with her even when I asked him not to. Finally, after a month of him abusing my generosity and emotionally destroying me, he moved out. I helped him, even though B was there and even though I was badly injured. When I dropped by his new place a few days later with stuff he needed, she was there. He told me never to come back to his apartment and said he wanted to go no contact. I'm broken. I'm living in an apartment I can't afford with 2 cats that don't understand why their dad won't come home. I lost my best friend and the person I was planning on spending the rest of my life with, and I'm barely coping. I went on a date with a nice guy, but I'm terrified to open up to anyone because I don't feel comfortable being vulnerable, as the last 2 times went so poorly and damaged my mental health so badly. I barely eat because I can't afford groceries, but I can't move because my cats and I need to stay close to work for my graduate program. I lost a family through this, and I'm not sure how much more I can take. Next story. In the 2nd grade, 2 women with clipboards sat in on our classroom for a week, just to observe. They were there, specifically, to observe me. I'll, 32F, never forgot the time 2 grown women were introduced to our class as observers for the week. They'll be in the back watching me teach for a few days. In order for them to do their job properly, please ignore them. Act like they're not here. They sat silently in the back taking notes on their respective clipboards for an hour or so each day. On that Friday, my teacher keeps me back during recess, telling me the 2 women want to chat/ask me some questions. I was then placed in a chair directly facing them, with my teacher and her aide standing off to the side a few steps behind the duo. Something was up. They then proceed to tell me, delicately, why they're here. They go on to explain that my teacher knows I'm a good student and so my recent failing test grades don't make sense. They then show examples of me spelling the same words, or doing the same math accurately on previous tests/assignments, yet completely wrong with recent ones. Have you been failing these tests on purpose? This was the first time I experienced that heart beating out of my chest type feeling. For one, it was true, I was faking it. On top of that, they seemed very serious, scary serious, especially to my 8-year-old self. I, shamefully, admitted that yes, I had been. And when they asked why, well, that answer, the truth, led to my first, non-parental, authoritative scolding on memory. Simply, I did it because I was jealous of the kids who seemingly got to have a second recess. There was a group of 20 or so students across the 6 second grade classrooms who got pulled each week for roughly half the day. One day I saw them, playing, outside from inside the classroom. They appeared to be having so much fun, and I wanted in on the fun. So I asked one of them how they got put into that group and was told, because I'm bad at spelling and math. Ugh, my 2 strongest subjects. What am I ever to do? Dumb myself down, of course. To become one of them, I had to act like them, think like them, test like them. After our little interview sesh, my failed adolescent attempt at manipulation, whatever you want to call it, was never discussed of again. My parents never questioned me about it. To this day I don't know what they know/were told, if anything at all. My peers never knew about it, and I never told a soul. Those women scared the living daylights out of me. Next story. When nurses were rude, I would make their drinks decaf. I worked at a busy hospital in Metro Atlanta. I was a manager at their coffee/buffet/bistro. It was a great option to have besides hospital food from a cafeteria. Nurses with piss-ass attitudes about the job they chose to do show up and start demanding things. They bitch that extra caramel drizzle or extra mocha is an upcharge. I do what I can to resolve it. But it's rarely successful. So I start fulfilling these ridiculous coffee orders with minimal upcharges. I meticulously make the drink to their very snarky request. And I make it with decaf. Don't be a shit to service people. Next one. I fake laughed at a joke for years and now it's too late to stop. So I have this friend who told a joke when we first met, and I fake laughed because I didn't want to be rude. I didn't think much of it at the time, but apparently, they took it as me loving the joke. Now, every time we're in a group or hanging out, they bring up the same joke because they think it's my favorite. They'll look at me like, "Oh, you gotta hear this one," and then repeat it word for word. And every single time, I laugh again because I don't know how to break the cycle. It's been like 5 years. 5. The joke wasn't funny the first time, and now it haunts me. I even catch myself pre-laughing when they start telling it because it's so predictable. I feel like I'm trapped in this endless loop of fake joy, and it's 100% my fault for pretending to like it in the first place. Sometimes I wonder if they'd even notice if I just stopped laughing, but at this point, it feels like some weird tradition I have to keep alive. What is wrong with me? Next story. I regret letting my grandmother pay for my computer science degree. I, 23 am a computer science student with 2 terms to finish before graduation. Over the past 4 years, I've become more and more terrified of this moment. As most people know, computer science used to be a great field to go into. I've shown interest in comp sci since I was 10 years old, so that's when my immigrant grandmother, my biggest supporter, decided to fund my entire education. My mom pushed for me to decline her offer, but I argued and said it would be great for my future. I am still very grateful for her gift, but I doubt I'll be able to find any job that pays anything. I might just join the military and go from there. It'll be a huge waste of money and break my grandmother's heart. I should have listened to my mom. Next story. After 13 years clean and 8 years of marriage, I did heroin 3 weeks ago and almost came close to fully relapsing. Remorse. I was a heroin addict in the Lower East Side of Manhattan in the 1990s as a teen. I got clean at 21 years old after years of abuse. I got married at 26 to my amazing and beautiful wife. She knows I was an addict. I spent all these years not even really thinking that much about the concept of relapsing. It had been so long. I still thought about it, but with marriage and my kids and everything, the thought of it was just so ridiculously out of sight to even consider trying it again. 3 weeks ago, it was my friend's birthday. He is 4 years younger than me, so of course he wants to go to some cool hip sketchy bar/club thing in Bushwick. I got drunk, really drunk. I hadn't really drank much at all in the past few years, so my tolerance was way lower than expected. There was a dealer outside and a few other junkies nearby. I don't even fully remember what happened, I just remember going with them, abandoning my friend at the bar, it was like 1 a.m. anyways, and going to some apartment and shooting up. I spent the night there, then all the way until noon the next day. I had 10 missed calls. I panicked when I came out of my daze. I told my wife I had gotten way too drunk and was puking and my phone was out of battery, so I stayed at Charlie's house. She was disappointed I didn't tell her, but also thought it was funny because she used to tease me for not being able to handle my liquor. This was a "I told you so" moment. She had told me not to drink too much before I went to the bar. She wasn't even in New York, she was at a summer house with the kids in Massachusetts. I spent the next 4 days until they got back just riddled with anxiety, urges to get more heroin, horrific mind zaps, I don't even know what to call them. It was, in some ways, worse than my withdrawal symptoms when I first was an addict. Not because of the physical feeling, but the horrible mental feeling of what I was possibly giving up, my wife and kids. I wanted to fucking get more so badly. I left my house to find heroin 4 fucking times. 4 times, I gave up to get more, but wasn't able to find any and snapped back to reality and went back home. I still thank fucking God I did not somehow run into some street dealer during those 4 times. I would have absolutely done it. I feel like everything I thought about myself, that I was strong, that my addiction was behind me, that I had beat heroin, it was all gone. I am not going to say I am back at square one or anything, I am not. But I feel like something inside of me has reset. My unwavering strength against addiction was broken at the slightest temptation. I still am weak. Heroin is so much stronger than me. It's truly unbelievable how much stronger it is than me. When I was young, my aunt had cancer. She beat it. Then it came back soon after, and she beat it again. It didn't come back, and we loved how strong she was for fighting her cancer and that she had overcome it. She lived with us. I remember her feeling of strength after her second year of not having cancer, her third year, her sixth year. It finally felt like it was gone for good. Her thinking, it's finally behind me now, it's a part of my past, and then it just fucking came back. 9 years after her first diagnosis, it came back and killed her. I remember her feelings and how she felt about it. So many years after she thought it had gone away. That is how I feel. Like a cancer which I thought I got rid of a decade ago just showed back up on my screening. The first 5 to 6 days after I tried it that time outside the bar were the worst. My kids and wife have come back. The urges mostly went away the second I saw my kids. I hugged them so damn hard. And I never told my family what happened, nor will I ever. My wife never understood that side of me, she met me 5 whole years after I was clean. I just cannot have her know, ever. I won't do it again. I am planning on not drinking to excess like that again, except maybe in very specific situations like at the summer house where there is no option of drugs. I mean, not like I want to get drunk again like that, but just in case I ever want to get loose. I am never doing that in the city again. I am still about 90% plus sure that I won't ever touch heroin again. I am still positive in myself about it. It's just, it used to be 99% sure. That is what fucking terrifies me. I said heroin is stronger than me. It is absolutely stronger than me. But the reason I won't ever do it again is that it isn't stronger than my family, my wife and kids. I don't care about how good it feels, I will not subject my wife and children to me being an addict. I would rather just kill myself than that. Next one. My sister died during postpartum and I'm a complete wreck. Venting. My 28-year-old sister gave birth to her first daughter 2 weeks ago. I-17F was in the hospital together with my parents and her husband. The birth went pretty smooth, although she was screaming so loud. I was so excited to be an auntie and holding my newborn niece in my arms was a precious moment. Everything seemed fine afterwards. My sister came home about 3 days later and she and her husband stayed with me and my parents as they needed help to take care of the baby. But 2 days after she came home, she was experiencing exhaustion, pain in her body, and she constantly fainting. She kept insisting that she was fine, but our mother said that fainting is not fine and brought her back to the hospital, where they discovered an infection or internal bleeding or both somewhere in her body and they were unable to treat it in time despite giving her mounds of antibiotics before she passed away 2 days later. A week has passed since, and 3 days since the funeral. I can't stop crying and thinking that if the doctors had noticed that something was wrong, my sister could still be alive. I loved my sister to death. She was my role model growing up. Now I lost her forever and only have my niece, who is completely unaware of what's going on. I'm sad, and angry, and upset and I miss my big sister so freaking much. I can't talk about this with my friends and she was my only sibling. My parents aren't helping much as they're also grieving, so I don't know what I'm expecting to get from here, but I'm just a complete freaking wreck. Next one. My wife discovers she's a pedophile. Nonfiction. Okay, so this story is actually pretty tongue-in-cheek. I just thought it was hilarious. I 26M and my wife 28F have been together since high school. When we first started dating we took each other's virginities when I was 16 and she was 18. We were both still in high school at the time. Honestly, the whole relationship was pretty adorable right from the start. Holding hands on the bus, us getting off at the wrong bus stop so I could spend more time walking her home, us kissing on an old wooden bridge while it rained. Very Hallmark type of stuff. As we grew older I would tease her that because I was 16 and she was technically an adult that means she technically groomed me, her being a 5 feet 2 inches innocent Catholic girl and me being a 5 feet 9 inches lacrosse player. Her deflection for this was that the age of consent in our state is 16. But one night we were drinking and the same old joke came up. That led us to do some research on the actual law. Turns out yes, the age of consent is 16, but the relationship has to at the approval of the younger party's parents. My wife then claimed that because my mom would buy my condoms for Christmas, it was my mom's way of consenting to us having sex. Fast forward to this year. My mother was staying over at the house because she was on a business trip and didn't want to pay for any hotels. Once again I brought up the joke and my wife then used her trump card about my mom buying condoms, which means everything was cool. My mom then turned and looked at her and said, "I didn't consent to you two having sex. I just bought my son condoms because I didn't want him getting any girls pregnant. I knew I couldn't stop him from having sex, but if he was going to, I wanted him to use protection." I don't think I've laughed that hard in years. So now, because of this revelation, I can now say the canonical story of events for me and my wife's long and very happy marriage starts with her grooming me as a young teen, technically molesting me, and then through her manipulating my young mind she convinced me to buy and ring and propose to her on the top of a mountain overlooking a lake on a camping trip we went on together. Long story short, according to Reddit logic, my wife is a pedophile and a child molester, and I've sentenced her to asking for forgiveness over her large collection of Jesus candles. I told her not to be looking at the baby Jesus candle because I just know. Before the comments section starts freaking out. Yes, I know there are real victims in this world and this story isn't meant to belittle their experience. I'm just trying to tell a wholesome and funny story that's finally come to a close. Edit, this post has made me realize that a lot of people either don't have a friendship with their significant other where there are recurring jokes, or they aren't in a relationship with their best friend. They're in a relationship with their bully. Next on. Next story. Wife has been using her annual girls' trip as an annual hall pass. Part 1. Fiction. My wife, Gwen, 31F, and I, Robert, 33M, have been together for 11 years and married for 8. We have a set of 4-year-old twins, M/F. Our relationship the last 3 years has been spectacular. We spend at least one night a week together on a date, sex is regular, we discuss everything, have long intimate conversations, and financially we are hitting full stride, both of us have growing careers. It wasn't always this good, but never has been bad either. We have grown up together. We had a lot of the typical couple issues early on and throughout our 20s. But each challenge just seemed to bring us closer in the end. That's what makes what I found out 2 days ago so much more devastating. My wife has been cheating on me. Every June, my wife and her best friend, Scarlett, take a girls' trip. It's been a tradition they've done since they were 18. It's nothing crazy, they usually just pick a nearby touristy town and spend the weekend shopping, or laying by a pool, or doing spa treatments. Nothing too over the top. She has this year's trip already booked and it's in just a couple of weeks. The other day, I was looking at our bank account app, and it wanted some mandatory info verification for privacy's sake. I clicked the button and it went into 2-step authorization. Clicked OK and it said it had to send me a code via text, but it's my wife's phone tied to the account. I begrudgingly got up and went and found her phone. I would normally ask, but she was napping and I didn't want to wake her. I picked the phone up and hit for the code to unlock since it obviously wasn't going to recognize my face. I know the PIN, it's the same thing she uses for everything. Once unlocked she has Snapchat open, and there's a message from her BFF in the chat. It says, "Are you really going to go through with it?" A sense of dread washed over me. I really had no reason to feel this way, but something about the question just felt so off. I thought hard about how my wife would respond, and typed back, "Why wouldn't I?" Scarlett responded, "I'm just saying, 2 guys at once is pretty intense." My heart dropped, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Knowing I couldn't keep the charade up, I stopped responding and began looking through the snaps. There were two guys I vaguely recognized as being from my wife's past. Unfortunately, it's Snapchat, so when I clicked on them there was nothing there. I went into her phone deeper. Nothing in her texts or email. I looked through a oddly named folder and in it is WhatsApp. Here are the messages I was looking for. Her messaging with her old HS boyfriend, Donald 31M, making plans for their upcoming, girls, trip. No smoking gun, no sexts or pics, but definitely flirty. Definitely making plans to meet at the hotel, and definitely planning on him bringing his college roommate, who was also my wife's second boyfriend, John, 32M. I couldn't believe she would do this. I was also wondering how long this has been going on. There are not a lot of messages, but I could tell that this won't be the first time Donald has joined her on the girls' trip. I knew since Scarlett would figure out that I sent that last response, I had to confront my wife when she awoke. When she finally awoke, some grueling 45 minutes later, she immediately picked up her phone. She didn't even notice me sitting in the chair in the corner of our room. After looking at her snaps, and sending a few back to Scarlett, she finally put two and two together and realized I had been on her phone. She looked over and finally noticed my presence. Her first words, said in a very aggravated tone, were, "Did you go through my phone?" Before I could even get a word out she starts laying into me about invasion of privacy. I became immediately engaged. How dare she blame me for anything? I tell her I know she is cheating, that she's talking to Donald and John, and that her and Scarlett's trip is just a cover. At first she tries to deny everything. Tries to gaslight me. Telling me I'm reading too much into the messages, that she is just catching up with old friends and knew I would act like this, that's why she didn't tell me they were going to get lunch. It was all bullshit. I got so mad this whole thing devolved into just screaming and yelling. I told her I wanted a divorce, and she said, "Really, you're going to throw away over 10 years over a couple of nothing texts?" Implying I was the one throwing things away, made me see the darkest red, and I said what I knew would get under her skin far more than anything else, "I'm not the one throwing it away, you stupid cunt." Now I knew this would drive her crazy. She hates that word. She even gets upset when TV characters say it. I've never seen her that mad, but it worked. She totally flipped and screamed at me that she does this for us. I was mind blown by that statement, but she wasn't done. I'm paraphrasing from memory, but basically she just ragingly started spouting off everything. "Why do you think our relationship gets better every fucking year? I deserve this. It's my free weekend, it lets me handle all the bullshit from the year, resets me. If you can't understand that, that's your problem. So fucking what if I'm crossing some lines? Are you not fucking happy? We have it great, and all it costs is me getting one weekend a year off." At this point she softened a little but kept a stern tone. "I get it, your pride is hurt, but it has nothing to do with you, this is for me. You can have a great life, I just need this once a year, and you need to make peace with that. We have a good thing going, don't fuck it up because you're mad now." I couldn't believe what I heard. I felt literally woozy in that moment. My chest tightened. This woman was out of her mind. I didn't say a word. I left the room, went to my car and headed for my brother's house. When I arrived I just texted my wife, "I'm at Mickey's, please don't message me, I need time. I've been hanging out here for 2 days just under the guise of generic marital problems." She has texted me each morning asking me to come home and talk. I responded both times, "Not yet. I don't know what to do, I've never been hurt so badly, or so callously. I love her, but this is too much, I plan to go back home tomorrow and try and sort this out. I don't see how we ever come back from this." Next story. GF, 26F, had an affair with her boss but wants to stay together. Story related. I, 28M, have been with my girlfriend, 26F, for 3 years, and we've been living together for almost the entire time. 2 months ago, she received a job offer that would essentially require us to move further away from my job and my brother. I asked her not to accept the job, but she thought it would be good for her career, so I eventually conceded and agreed to move with her. She informed her current job that she was leaving, and during that week, she came to me and said she wasn't sure if things would work out between us because I had been so unsupportive. She mentioned she was unhappy and that I didn't make her feel special. This news really shook me because I always envisioned a future with her. The thought of losing her over something seemingly trivial motivated me to take action. I immediately booked a fancy hotel room for us and took her out to show her how much I loved her. She agreed that we could take it day by day, so I did everything possible to make her believe in us again. I woke up early to cook breakfast, sent her sweet messages, and did everything I could think of to make her feel special. Later that week, I overheard her laughing on the phone with her boss, which gave me a weird feeling. I had always felt uncomfortable with how unprofessional she seemed with him, especially since they would hang out outside of work, in groups with coworkers. That night, while she was sleeping, I decided to check her phone, not expecting to find anything but just to be sure. However, the texts I found between her and her boss were extremely suggestive. I woke her up and confronted her. She admitted that he had confessed his feelings for her and that she might have feelings for him. She said he had kissed her once when she told him she was leaving the company, but nothing had happened since. She also told me that he had been trying to convince her to leave me. We stayed up all night talking, and I told her that I could move on if she recommitted to our relationship and cut off all contact with him. The next day was her last day at her old job, and she told me she had the conversation with him and blocked him. The next 6 weeks were incredibly difficult for me, but I eventually started to feel better. However, there were a few inconsistencies in her story that bothered me. I wanted to move forward, get engaged, and recommit, but I needed to know the whole truth. So, I reached out to her boss. He told me that they had kissed 3 times, not just once, and the last time they kissed was when she told him she was going to try to reconcile with me, on her last day of work, after I found out. He also mentioned that they had talked a little the following week after she claimed she had blocked him and promised me she would never lie again. Now, I don't know what to do. I kicked her out of our apartment and said we couldn't live together anymore, but she keeps telling me she'll do anything to make it work between us. I told her I needed 2 weeks before we could talk again, but I don't know if I can ever get over this. Did she choose him over me? Was I the second option? What would have happened if I never found out? I don't know if I should move on or try to make it work. I still love her, and we have so much history together. We've gone on family vacations, and I had planned to propose within a few months. I'm so confused and feel alone. Are all women like this? Is there any chance of rebuilding trust? Next story. My ex-GF is begging me to not continue with the complaint, but I will. Non-fiction. So I was with M for 3 years and for me everything was fine. We were the classic couple always together, doing everything together, going everywhere together and all this stuff just like she wants, and for me it was okay. But everything changed 2 months ago when I discovered that she was cheating on me with one of my friends. After that I discovered the cheating. I don't made any type of scene, I never screamed, I never cried or anything of these things that I hate. I just told her that we were over and we immediately broke up. Of course she tried to change my mind with tears, begged me for forgiveness, tried to hug me, but I always refused because cheating is the only thing I will never forgive to anyone. She spent 2 months on stalking me on social media with fake accounts. She tried to contact me with new numbers and even made all her friends to contact me, but I had always refused to do anything for her. I wasn't even mad, I was just in shock and couldn't believe that she did that to me since I have done everything I could for her. I always made her surprises, expensive and not gifts. We were going to vacations in beautiful places. I was romantic with her, bringing flowers, chocolate, making her special meals. I even took cooking classes for her, so the cheating came out of the blue for me. I love to work out, so my physique isn't a problem, and even sex wasn't a problem because I heard her many times with her female friends saying how lucky she was to find a guy that can satisfy her. Anyway, 1 month ago I bought a new car because my old one was having serious problems and the mechanic, a family friend, told me clearly to get rid of it because the cost of maintenance was too high, so I did. I bought my new car and installed some cameras and a security system inside because since it's new and is very expensive I wanted it to be protected. So 3 weeks ago at morning I found out my brand new car being completely destroyed, broken windows, striped everywhere and with a note on the front, "Please, I just want to talk with you." I immediately knew that she was the one that made all the disaster and the cameras recorded that too. The same day I went to the police with the proofs to sue her, and after a few days I received a message from a new number where she was begging me to withdraw the complaint because she was having a job interview and if they knew about it she would have lost the opportunity for the job. I never replied to her messages in this months and I never will, and of course I'm not withdrawing the complaint. It's been 2 weeks that she is calling me and messaging me to withdraw the complaint, but I will never do it because for me any action have consequences and you must think before of the action about the consequence and not after begging. It don't work with me. So, at the end, my ex will not have her job and I will have my car repaired, and for me everything is fine. Although she is still messaging and calling me, but I will never change my mind. Next. A woman complimented me in the airport years ago. Non-fiction. When I was 22, now 26, I was sitting on one of those train shuttles that take you to different terminals and minding my own business. Every seat on the shuttle is taken. I look up from my phone and see an elderly woman came on board with a cane, and when she walked near me I stood up, smiled at her and offered her my seat. She looked at me smiling, looking relieved, and said, "Thank you, you are so kind, thank you." That part made me smile, but what caught me off guard is the woman sitting across from us. She must have been in her mid-30s, serious looking, East European accent, looks me up and down, looks directly in my eyes and says in a loud, matter-of-fact tone, "Of course he is kind, he is a gentleman," with an emphasis on the word gentleman. And in that moment I felt so confident, self-content, warm, and alive. I have never felt that way before and have not felt that way since. I simply smiled, thanked her, and went back to looking at my phone. Man, I still feel warm and happy when I think about it. I still occasionally get the opportunity to be a good person, like when I traded my seat on the plane so a pregnant woman had the aisle seat and an easier access to the restroom, but nothing has compared. Next. If your boss invites you to one of their family members' funeral, don't go. Venting. I, 25M, was invited to a funeral by my boss 2 days ago. I've worked for her for almost 6 years, and we are acquaintances even outside of work. So when her father died and she invited me to the gathering at her place, I felt like I couldn't say no. I woke up today and realized I didn't want to go. I'm terrible at talking to grieving people, but I forced myself to be there. I don't know anyone here, and everyone is in their 50s. I pretty much don't exist. My boss has come to see me a few times, but I still feel out of place. Now I'm on my phone until I feel it's been long enough so I can leave. My gut told me to stay home. I should have listened. I'm never going to a funeral in these circumstances unless someone comes with me. Learn from my mistakes. 25 minutes to go. Edit, I take it back. 1 hour of boredom and feeling like I don't belong for 10 minutes of bonding. My boss showed me a video of her dad teaching a class. As she did, she poured herself to me. She talked about her dad and how important he was to her. She has so much love for him, and it touched me. I'm kind of teary-eyed. I'm glad I was here because I think she needed that 10 minutes of sharing. Next. My husband's work proposed to him. Fiction. My husband has a work wife. They are friends who go out to lunch often and tease each other and talk about some personal things. She brings him homemade lunches sometimes and he's brought her leftover desserts, that I made. It didn't bother me at first, but it feels like she has a connection to him that I don't. To make matters worse, she proposed to him to make their work relationship work official. She playfully feels like he's not a real work husband if they don't have an actual work wedding. He thinks it's hilarious, and their manager said it's a fine excuse to throw a party out of their pizza party funds. They throw celebratory parties somewhat often when they ship a product or land a big client. The parties are usually a few grand in food and drinks and entertainment. His company is a dream come true, but I think him and his friend are taking this too far. He was planning on wearing his normal work clothes to the wedding, but there's rumors she's going to wear her wedding dress from her failed marriage. She's been divorced for 5 years. What should I do? I told him this is ridiculous, but he keeps talking me down. I'm considering showing up to respectfully voice my concerns during the, if anyone has objections, part of the ceremony. His co-workers know me from the last Christmas party and the time I had to bring him a clean pair of pants, so I know they'd let me into the party. It's in the middle of the day, so I'd need to take time off work, but if I can stop their marriage, maybe I can save mine. Next. Go to stories. r/stories. 5 mo ago. Wonderful_wealth 5108. My boyfriend has been more romantic lately. Nonfiction. My 27F boyfriend, 23M, has been really romantic lately. I got home this morning and he was in a really good mood when I picked him up in the afternoon. He showered when we got home and went to a park. We walked around for a while and went to the aquarium. The aquarium is on the park grounds. We grabbed dinner at a restaurant nearby and we found a nice spot to watch the sunset afterward. Today was perfect. My boyfriend is always romantic, but lately, he's dialing up the romance and I love it. We just got back home and we're relaxing on the couch. We're watching a movie and we have all the lights off, just candles. It's so romantic, I feel so happy when I'm with him. Edit, my boyfriend is a construction worker. That's why he showered when he got home. Next obey. I lost my V-card to a 37-year-old woman, and now a 14-year-old girl has reached out to me claiming I'm her father. Venting. It has been a weird couple of days for me and I need to get this off my chest. This all started on Friday when I got a Facebook message from an old colleague telling me my daughter was trying to get in contact with me. I hadn't heard from this person in years, so I was skeptical at first, but I decided to hear them out. The girl in question has recently lost her mother to cancer, and the man who she thought was her father turned around and told her she wasn't his and kicked her out. She moved in with her uncle thankfully, but ever since she's been looking for her real dad. Anyways, around 15 years ago I was a naive young man barely in my 20s working in a supermarket. When I started I was buddied up with a 37-year-old woman who was drop-dead gorgeous. Like I said, I was rather naive, so obviously I instantly became infatuated with her easygoing and tactile demeanor. Sadly, only a month after I started that job she handed in her notice, and that spurred me to go for it and ask her out on a date. She laughed and agreed, and so started the wildest 3 months of my life. I won't go into details, but we were intimate on a handful of occasions and I even stupidly confessed my love to her. But it was then she told me she was moving away to be with her fiancé, which left me absolutely heartbroken. Later a colleague would tell me that she was also seeing a guy who worked on the checkouts at the same time she was seeing me. Back to the present day and I had all but forgot about it. I have 2 kids and a very pregnant wife to think about after all, so this has somewhat knocked me sideways. I feel for the kid having her whole world torn apart so abruptly, but the thing is I don't think I'm her father. Though I was young and foolish I always used protection, but there is a part of me that hopes I am, as I can provide the loving family that she is so desperately looking for. I haven't told my wife yet because she is 8 months pregnant with our 3rd child and has enough to worry about, but I have arranged a paternity test. Another thought that crossed my mind that she is contacting me first because I am the better prospect, as I went on to bigger and better things while the other guy still works on the checkouts at the same store 15 years later and from what I've been told has a bit of a problem with alcohol. I'm also angry at the man who raised her, playing dad all those years only to callously abandon her when she needed him the most. I'm also angry and sad that I might have missed out on so much of my potential daughter's childhood. The wife knows something's up, so I think I'm going to bite the bullet and tell her. I just had to get this off my chest. Edit, update. Wow, I didn't expect this to blow up so much. I have an update on the situation. so I sat my wife down and told her everything this morning like most of you have been suggesting. After giving me a severe tongue lashing for not telling her sooner, my wife said probably the most sensible thing I've heard, which is I should try and contact the girl's uncle to verify her story, and boy am I glad I did. You see, I had made one fatal assumption, which was that the stepfather was the same person as the fiancé. Turns out, checkout guy found out about the baby and claimed she was his. The fiancé broke things off after finding out about her infidelity and decided to move abroad. Checkout guy got a paternity test when the girl was born and he wasn't the father, but he only did it to try and get back together with her, which obviously failed miserably. The stepfather didn't come along until a year or two later after the girl was born. He's been having a hard time dealing with the death of his wife, and after a particularly bad argument decided the best thing was for the girl to go and stay with her uncle, who is an absolutely lovely guy and actually remembered me even though I had only met him briefly in the past. Anyway, she is happy and safe at her uncle's, it's close to her school and she gets on well with her cousins. The crazy thing is that they weren't actually looking for me, I just happened to have the same first name as the fiancé. The young lady jumped the gun in getting in contact with me, but they are 99% sure that the fiancé is her father. This is when my wife made another sensible suggestion. I love that woman so much, and asked for the girl's birthday so we can match up the dates, and they don't quite match up, but I'm still going through with the paternity test just in case. The thing is, now I have to put up with the odd rendition of Billie Jean from my beloved, which is probably going to last a few weeks before it gets old. I should explain why I didn't immediately tell my wife about this. You see, I was just panicking about the whole situation, and though she is a caring and understanding woman, she can be rather ferocious. Needless to say, I try not to find myself on the sharp end of her tongue. Also, she is 8 months pregnant and it has been a difficult pregnancy for her, and I didn't want to add any extra stress, but as many of you have pointed out, it would have only been worse if I had not said anything. Next story. A woman helped me when I was homeless and I'll never forget her. Nonfiction. When I was younger, I was homeless. I had been emancipated from my family and had a lot of trauma from being raped at age 15 along with other abuse throughout my childhood. I ended up getting into drugs, and then decided the only way to get sober was to hitchhike around the state so I could never make connections. I was young, naive, scared, traumatized, and alone. One thing you learn very quickly when you're homeless is that people treat you as subhuman. I got my first criminal charge at age 18 for sleeping in a public park. They woke me up and told me to leave in the middle of the night. I had nowhere else to go. People avert their eyes when you walk by. You aren't allowed to use the bathroom anywhere, even if someone else looking less homeless would have been allowed. People shout things at you and talk down to you. It's pretty demoralizing. One day, I was sitting on the sidewalk and holding a sign that I think just said, "Hungry." I didn't have a lot of skills and couldn't maintain a job because of moving around. I was also afraid to have more than a few dollars at a time because my sobriety was still fresh. I realize now the issues with begging, and would never do it again. Anyways, this woman walks by me with 2 young daughters and looks at my sign. She looks at me and says, "You're hungry? Well, why don't you come eat with us?" Keep in mind, I'm used to people shielding their children from me. Children would walk by me and ask their parents questions, and the parents would shush them and rush them along. I was taboo. Not to be acknowledged. So already this was astounding to me. She is letting me eat a meal with her and her children. She takes me into the restaurant and we all sit down. She asks me about my life and why I'm on the streets. She asks me about myself. She seems genuinely interested and not afraid. This is the first time I've been treated like a human in a long time. She gets me breakfast and even a dessert, which I try to refuse. After that, she gave me money and her phone number on a piece of paper. She said to call if I ever needed anything. Her name was Dawn. I will never forget her. Dawn, if you're out there, you reminded me that day that I was still human. That I deserved kindness and respect. That I wasn't some broken, scary monster. Thank you. I will never forget that. If I still had her number I would call in a heartbeat, but it was lost when my backpack was stolen a few months later. Also, in case anyone cares, I have been sober for 6 years now and I'm housed and working. Almost done with my associate's degree. Edit: a few people have asked how I got housed, so I'll put it here. Social programs, funded by the federal, state, and local government. That's literally it. I went to a rehab paid for by Medicaid, a transitional housing program funded by my county in the Federal Housing Authority, and I'm still using my Section 8 housing voucher funded by the federal government, although I'm working in IT now so I hope to be completely self-sufficient soon, winky face. Fund social programs. They work. Next story. The plumber who came to work at my place is now my boyfriend. Non-fiction. Yes, it sounds like a plot from an adult film. At the beginning of the year, my sink started leaking, and since I live in an apartment, my landlord scheduled an appointment with a plumber to fix it. I left work early, and it happened to be the first snowstorm of the year. I got completely stuck in the snow with my car in front of my place. The plumber was already there, working on plumbing at my neighbor's. Still stuck in the snow, my neighbor came to warn me that the plumber was waiting. I was frustrated with my car situation. I went inside, opened the door, and saw this incredibly handsome guy. I was momentarily speechless. After finally managing to free my car from the snow, I went inside. I'm quite introverted and shy in life, but I awkwardly tried to make conversation. We spoke strangely, as if we knew each other. When he finished, we said goodbye, and he left. Later, he returned and rang my doorbell. I thought he had probably forgotten something, but he asked for my phone number. I was so happy, we started texting, and on our first date, everything felt so natural. I felt comfortable with him like never before. Today, we're a couple, and he lives with me. I'm dating my plumber. Next. Update: I caught my boyfriend hitting my daughter. Story related. Hi there, yes I did go to the police. Before I did I decided to look through the camera feed to see if there had been any more occasions of him hitting her. It had happened once before. We have one of the ones where we can access it from our phones, in case anyone is confused. I did as some of you said and took pictures of her bruises. I did take the footage to the police. His mother found out and called me enraged, saying how could I ruin a good man's life. I simply hung up on her and blocked her. Legal shit is going on, and when I was checking the camera I saw he'd done exactly as I thought he would. He ended up destroying some of the stuff I left behind, such as my grandmother's china collection she left behind, some pictures of me and my family, my favorite dress, and some stuff I had been collecting so we could get a dog. So I'm taking that to the police as well. Sorry this isn't a big update, it's only been like a week. I might update when this is all over. Next. My girlfriend told me she was pregnant, so I had arranged to move all her stuff out behind her back. Fiction. If you only read the title, I might sound like a bad guy. But I'm not. I've known I wanted to be child-free since my early teens. My parents didn't oppose me, but they did say I could change my mind. Since I'm not an only child, they'll still get grandchildren. When I was 20, I got a vasectomy. When I was 22, I met my girlfriend. I've been open about wanting to be child-free from the very beginning. I remember telling her about my vasectomy, but to be honest, I think there was already alcohol involved. So I'm not sure if she remembers. We were dating for a year and a half when she moved in with me. I'm now 25. 2 weeks ago, I got home from work, and my girlfriend was standing in the living room smiling. She showed me the positive pregnancy test. Thinking it was a TikTok prank, I played along. When she didn't reveal it was a prank, I knew what had happened, but I continued playing along. That night, I got up at midnight and started sending emails. I took a week off work and emailed my best friends the details, telling them to pretend they knew nothing and be prepared. The next morning, I left for work as usual, but I didn't go to work. Carl, one of my friends, was waiting outside. He had a cap and a hoodie ready for me. The whole week, we followed Katie, and on day 3, she met up with her affair partner. We followed them to a motel, and then Carl followed him to his home. The guy was married with kids. We devised a plan. I convinced Katie to go to her parents' house to tell them the good news last Saturday. While there, I gave my friends the keys to my home. At Katie's parents' house, we had lunch with the parents and siblings first, and then Katie told them the good news. Everyone was happy. After a while, I got a call I had to take. It was my friends telling me they were done and ready. So I asked to make an announcement. I pulled Katie aside in front of everyone. I bet they thought I was going to propose. I started by telling how we met, how much she meant to me, and ended with, "And that's why it hurts so much that you cheated on me and got pregnant by someone else." The room was silent. Katie looked shocked. She started telling me it wasn't a funny joke. I said I'm not joking. The moment you told me you were pregnant, I knew you cheated. I got a vasectomy 5 years ago, and I go to checkups every year. So if you're pregnant, you have cheated. At that moment, her phone rang. I told her to answer it. It was probably AP's full name. You know, the real father of your baby. Probably wants to talk about you moving in. Not sure if his wife and kids are going to like that. What happened was that my friends had loaded up everything of Katie's in a U-Haul and brought it to AP's home. When they called me, they were in front of his home for the final part. They rang the doorbell and asked the AP where they could put her things. He was confused, and they handed him and his wife a folder with pictures of him and Katie. And Carl said, since OP is kicking her out, she needs a place to stay. We're just here delivering her things. And since you don't want the woman who is pregnant with your child to stay on the street, we assumed you would take her in. AP called Katie yelling that she ruined his life and he never wants to see her again. After hearing him scream over the phone, I said, "Oh, so his wife doesn't want his mistress and their affair baby living there. So you'll have to stay here. With your parents." With that, I walked away, leaving a crying Katie and her confused and angry family behind. My friends brought the U-Haul with her stuff to her parents' house after the AP refused to accept it. I went home where my sister was waiting for me. She knew everything. This was not part of my plan, but Carl knows me so well. I broke down and cried in my sister's arms. She stayed the weekend taking care of me, allowing me to grieve and process the betrayal. Next. Old lady from my gym stopped showing up one day. Nonfiction. I started going to the gym a little while ago to start taking better care of myself. There was an old lady who went every day at the same time. She would spend hours there just stretching and walking. Originally I paid her no mind as I like to keep to myself during workouts. After about 3 weeks of going 5 days a week she came up to talk to me. We were the only two in the gym and she forgot her headphones. She asked if I was okay with her playing her podcast out loud. I said it was fine since I had my own headphones in and wouldn't hear it. She continued to talk to me every day after that. She told me she was there 7 days a week. I learned a lot about her. She was always there for 2 to 3 hours in the afternoon. A couple weeks ago she told me she was moving as her place was too expensive. She had 2 weeks left but said she'd still come to the gym. That was the last time I saw her in the gym. I went there at the same hours she always used to go. I spent extra time some days to see if she was just running late. She never showed up. I'm not sure what happened to her, all I know is that her 2 weeks are up at her place. It makes me a bit sad that I won't see her anymore. I hope she's doing okay. Next. My wife cheated and now she wants me back. What should I do? Story related. My wife had got home from work late, which wasn't unusual for her since she usually had night shifts, but last week she came back sweaty and was acting strange. I decided to check her messages, and that's when I found it, a string of messages between her and another man. I confronted her about it and she began to cry, saying how sorry she was, but I just got her out the door. Ever since she has been texting me how sorry she was, but I don't think I can forgive her. What should I do? A few hours after this post, I have decided, after reading all the comments and advice, that I'm going to divorce her. I text her I'm going to divorce her and she just begged me not to, but I decided I'm going through with it. I just can't forgive her. That's it for now. Anything more happens, I'll update on this post. Thank you for all the support and comments, it means a lot. Next. My first boyfriend called a freak because I have a stammer and enjoy anal sex. Venting. I know those two things don't seem to correlate, but hear me out. Yes, I stammer, which is explained by a lot of anxiety and insecurities I suffered during my teenage years. At the same time, I was horny AF back then, and sexual exploration was a way to find respite from that anxiety. Eventually, I got a boyfriend in high school and began having sex. I was very curious about anal, so, one day, I asked him to do it. He said no. I said okay, and we had normal sex. Just before going to bed I got a long message saying that he couldn't stay with a freak like me and that my liking of anal sex and my stammer were a clear sign that I was kid inside. I never saw him again after that. This doesn't affect me anymore, and today I do enjoy anal very much, winky face. I just wanted to write this to say to whoever is out there doubting themselves, just do whatever floats your boat. Next story. I made a huge mistake during my bachelor party trip. My fiancée moved on, and I just want her back. Part 1. Fiction. 5 years ago I, Walt 28M, made a choice that royally fucked up my life. I had a lot going for me. At the time I was the new guy at my firm. I was an architect, mostly subdivisions, and really enjoying it. I had a long-term girlfriend of 3 years, Emily 29F now, 24 then, that I had recently become engaged to. I really thought nothing could derail me. After Emily said yes, we began to plan the wedding. We were not up for the big wedding thing. We agreed we would have an elopement to a coastal city. San Diego became the plan. Parents/siblings were welcome to come if they wanted, but basically we were just booking a honeymoon and getting married while we were there. Since this whole trip was going to be, relatively speaking, inexpensive, we decided to splurge on pre-wedding activities. Now, neither of us wanted traditional bachelor/bachelorette parties. We agreed we would scratch off bucket list items. Emily wanted to swim with sharks, and booked herself one of those cage dive excursions. Her and her best friend Maggie went to Florida for a long weekend and did just that. Mine was quite a bit more. I had always wanted to visit Thailand. It was one of those dumb things I got fascinated with as a 10-year-old and swore I was going to go. Emily actually encouraged me, pointing out that I literally brought up Thailand on our first date. We were 6 months into our engagement when the time came for me and my best friend, Jorge, to leave on the trip. For the first 3 days everything was great. We were enjoying beaches, visiting temples, and a lot of drinking. On that third night though, Jorge got absolutely smashed drunk. I was a little pissed about this and tried to slow him down. The next day we were supposed to go on a jungle excursion. It was one of the things I was most looking forward to, so I had been pacing myself so I could enjoy the trek. The next morning Jorge has a world-class hangover, refused to get up at all, and says we can book an excursion tomorrow. My thought was, fuck that, I'm going today. I had seen ads for a few places that did these. I went out to get some breakfast and spotted a guy on the side of road offering the jungle excursion cheap. He had a Jeep, and when he noticed me looking at his sign, moved in with the hard sell. Honestly, it did look a little shady, but the guy spoke English so well it gave me a false sense of security. I decided to go with this guy. I get in, and for a while it's actually pretty fun. He pulls off the main road on these off-road paths. I have no idea where we are going. We end up deep down these roads. I'm enjoying it for the most part though. Then everything went sideways. We stopped in this small clearing, and I was checking some things out, when out of nowhere local law enforcement pulls up. I don't know what's being said, I can only pick out a word here and a word there. They start going through the guy's Jeep and find a rather large quantity of methamphetamine. I am shitting a brick at this point. These cops take us both into their small, middle-of-nowhere station. This is when I come to realization that this motherfucker has taken me into Cambodia. I don't have my ID or passport on me, they are back in the room. These cops are not listening to anything and I have no idea what my guide is telling them. I was freaking out but also thought, it'll be okay, Jorge will realize I'm gone, look into where I am. I'm not going to go into what the next 4.5 years were like, but hell is an easy comparison. I'll just leave it at a Cambodian jail isn't the most hospitable environment. It took 5 months of sitting in that cell before I even saw a judge. The judicial system there is so backlogged, and the few public defenders that exist are basically in the large cities only. During this whole time I was never allowed to contact anyone on the outside. My first time in front the judge they didn't have an interpreter and it got postponed another 5 months. I finally had that pre-trial hearing, entered a plea, then it was another 14 months before my actual hearing. When I finally had me hearing, the judge was very fair and dismissed my charges on time served, only for the prosecutor to appeal the dismissal. This put me back into custody for another 28 months. This was the most devastating moment of my life, to think I was out and end up still in for that long. During this time, after no one came for me, I realized they all thought I was dead. I had gone missing. Jorge had no idea where I was. I had called back home the morning I was arrested and left messages, but they only knew I was going on a jungle excursion. My parents, my fiancé, I missed them so much. There were plenty of days I was hoping one of the other inmates or a rough guard would just take me out already, especially after the first year when I became more tolerant of the food and water. Finally after 52 months in captivity I was released. I had nothing to my name and was in a country I wasn't supposed to be in. I contacted the embassy, and they did have a missing persons file for me. They helped me contact home. I attempted to contact my fiancé but a guy named Mitch answered and he did not know an Emily, so I figured she must have changed her number at some point. I called my mother. She was absolutely frantic. She grabbed my father and I told her my entire tale. I kept asking about Emily and my mother kept deflecting. She wanted to get started immediately getting me home, and said we would talk about everything when I got back to the US. It took a little while to make this happen. My parents luckily had my original passport and ID, which made the process somewhat faster. During that time they sent me money and I was able to get a hotel. My parents were very adamant I not try to contact Emily during this time and to wait until we got back. I obviously started to assume she had moved on and was with someone else. Which was heartbreaking. I had held out hope during my imprisonment that she would not, but with the way my parents were acting I assumed that was the case. Even so I wanted to contact her immediately, before anything else. I didn't want to talk about my time there, I didn't want to talk about what they did trying to find me, or know anything about anyone else. I just wanted my fiancé. My parents sat me down and handed me a save-the-date card. It was Emily and some tall handsome guy I'd never seen before. She was engaged. I broke down, it wasn't unexpected, but the feelings were still there. I asked my parents if they had kept in touch with her beyond just being wedding guest worthy. They said yes, they've actually been a huge part of each other's lives these last few years. I was a little shocked. I know they liked Emily, but with me gone I had somewhat expected them to drift apart, not get closer. I decided to ask, so how close are you guys now? My mother responded, very, her father passed a year ago and your dad has agreed to walk her down the aisle. That hurt, it shouldn't, but it did. Why you? Was all I could say. My mom got emotional, started going on about how they all thought I was gone, that a cartel or something got me, that they looked so hard and so long. They had a whole memorial service for me. I snapped a little. I don't care about that right now, what are you not telling me? My mother took that tablet and flipped a few photos. She then handed it back to me. There was a whole group photo. My parents, Emily, her fiancé, her mom, my sister, my brother, Emily's brother, Jorge, other friends and kids. But at the center of the table was a boy sitting behind a birthday cake. The decorations read, "Happy 4th birthday," he was smiling big. I just looked at my parents. My mother looked at me and said, "That's your son, Paul," my dad's name, Walter, my name, Ryan, our last name. In the 2 weeks since I got back home it simultaneously feels like so much has happened, and that virtually nothing has happened. I have been largely brought up to speed on all that has happened on this side of the world. When Jorge finally got up out of bed that day 5 years ago he tried to call me. After having no success, the officers confiscated my phone immediately upon arrest. I never saw it again. He decided to just go about his day, assuming I was enjoying my excursion. It wasn't until it was well past dark that he started to get concerned. He called back home to see if anyone else had heard from me. The next morning my family and fiancé were blowing up his phone wondering if I had come back yet. That's when he began venturing out to all the excursion places. They all reported that they had not seen me. He began to panic and alerted everyone back home. He went to the authorities at this point. My parents, brother and fiancé all made the trip to join him. They spent a month canvassing the area before they had to go back. My parents made another trip to Thailand to try and find me, but again turned up nothing. Over the next year and a half they were a constant reminder to the Thai officials of my disappearance. Unfortunately, no one thought to look in Cambodia. Meanwhile, my fiancée Emily came to the realization she was pregnant. On the day I left for Thailand, she was unknowingly around 10 weeks. I can only imagine how hard it was on her. "I'm missing, she's pregnant with my child. I wish I had never gone." My parents told me Emily really leaned on them, and they were happy to help. Over the years they've just grown closer and closer. Her parents were there, and supportive, but they are much older than mine and not in as good of health. My mom ended up taking Emily to a lot of her OB appointments. She was there in the delivery room along with Emily's mom. It was apparently very stressful as Paul was born at just 34 weeks. Luckily he showed no signs of health problems and they just kept him under heightened observation initially. My parents tell me they needed this. The anguish of not knowing what happened to me was very hard, and the birth of their grandson provided a much-needed respite from the grief. They keep telling me how sorry they are, but they didn't do anything wrong. I guess it's just guilt now that they know I was out there, and they failed to find me. Jorge has been by to see me. He has apologized far too many times. He's gotten married since the trip, and has 2 kids now. He seems nervous around me, and I guess that's fair. I do hold some resentment towards him. It's not his fault, but the feeling is there anyway. My brother and sister have marched on with life. My brother has kids now, and my sister is married. I missed all of this. I could probably get over all of that, but losing my fiancé and missing out on 4 years with my son, it's been too much. My parents have set me up with a therapist. I went to the first session but have no idea what to talk about. I was wrongfully incarcerated for 5 years, beaten at times, starved at times. Plenty of PTSD. My whole family thought I was dead, so much so they had a memorial service for me 3 years to the day of my disappearance. I was supposed to marry the love of my life, and she is now engaged to someone else. Then to top it all off, I have a 4-year-old son, who has been raised by my replacement since he was 18 months old. Paul only knows this guy as Dad, he calls him Dad, and now here I am, back from the dead to fuck up everyone else's perfect little lives. I'm ranting though. It's just too much to unpack. I still haven't directly spoken to Emily. My father went to her house the day after my return. He sat her and her fiancé, Kevin 34M, down, told them I had been found. She began to tear up. She thought he was saying my body had been recovered. When he corrected her, she had a complete breakdown. Her fiancé comforted her. My dad said she was just silent afterwards. I tried texting her, I got no response for a whole day, then just I'm so sorry, I just can't right now. I haven't asked anyone about her fiancé, other than I know she's been engaged for about 2 months, and the wedding is supposed to be in 6. No one has just volunteered any information at this point. We were supposed to all meet at the park this past weekend. My resurgence has thrown the harmony out of whack and I can tell everyone is a little off. My mother typically watches Paul while Emily and Kevin are at work. A lot of time it's at her house, but since I showed up it's been exclusively over at Emily's. I hear they are prepping him to meet me. He is aware I'm his father. My pictures are all over at my parents' house. Emily has apparently always had a picture of me up in Paul's room. I'm a shell of the guy in the picture, but I guess at least I kinda look like that still. He won't be totally blind-sided. My parents and I arrived at the park first. When we saw their car pull up, only Kevin and Paul got out. Emily was not with them. Paul ran up to my dad first and gave him a big hug. He saw me and kind of retreated to my mom, then over to Kevin. I could tell he was nervous. I mean shit, so was I, and I'm not 4 years old. The other adults tried to say something to get us to talk or embrace or something. I told them to let it go, let him go play. He perked up and ran off to the playground. Kevin came up and stuck his hand out. We shook, and he said, "Sorry, Emily, couldn't today." We were about out the door and she broke down, told me she wasn't ready. I just said, "I understand." I went over to the playground to try and bond in some way. Turns out Paul is big into superheroes. He pretended to be Spider-Man and I had to be Rhino. I chased him all over the playground, and let his web me up. He laughed and smiled. When the food was ready I was happy to see he liked his hot dogs the same as me. Ketchup on one side, mustard on the other, relish on top. I thought maybe this won't be so hard. Then he called Kevin Dad. I shouldn't have surprised by this. He's been in this kid's life for 2.5 years, he marrying his mom, they all live in the same house. That all said, it was like a knife in the heart, I began to actually tear up. I excused myself for a moment, and said I was going over to the Gross Park bathroom. When I came out after a minute Kevin was waiting. I could see my parents across the way watching Paul. I felt instantly awkward. The last thing I wanted right now was a heart-to-heart with Kevin. He was taller than me, more built than me, and had gotten to have the life I was supposed to have. He just said, "Can we talk?" I said, "Yeah, man, what's on your mind?" Worried about Emily and Paul. Emily more than him. She hasn't been herself, which I can appreciate to some degree. It took a long time for her to get over you. I'm the first person she dated after your incident. She cried the first time we kissed because it was different. I want you to have a relationship with your son. He's little, he's resilient. I had 2 dads growing up, I know he will be fine. I don't know how fine her or you will be if this goes too fast, and from a selfish standpoint I don't want anything disrupting our life or our engagement. I love her, and want what's best. I'd like you two to take it slow and process everything before you meet. I made an appointment for her to see a counselor. I'd appreciate it if you could respect that and not push her or reach out to her. Let her figure things out on her own first. I was pissed listening to him, pretentious ass, but fuck, he had some points. I don't want to rip open all these old wounds. I ended up just saying, "Yeah man, I can do that." And walked off to join my parents and Paul. Kevin went into the gross bathroom. When he came back over he said him and Paul were going to head out. Paul gave everyone hugs, including me. I was surprised, but pleasantly. Then he called me Rhino, and ran off to Kevin. As they left I heard him say, "Dad, can we get a cookie cake on the way home?" Ugh, he's Dad, I'm Rhino, and this just fucking sucks. We finally met. We started by texting a bit, but it felt so impersonal the conversation stayed at a surface level. The deepest we really got was talking about Paul and me briefly divulging what Cambodian prison was like. Over the 3 weeks between our first text exchange and our meet-up we only texted maybe 5 times, and each time it started to get into heavy subjects one of us would end the conversation. During that time though I did spend more time with Paul. My mother began watching him at her house again and that gave us time to bond. I even had some one-on-one time with him when we went to get ice cream together one day. It's amazing how resilient kids are, he just goes with the flow of everything. He still calls me Rhino, but maybe I'll get the "Dad" title soon. One day this past week, when Kevin came by to pick up Paul, he asked to talk again. This time he had a job offer for me, which had me getting pissed. Then he elaborated that it wasn't really an offer but more of a lead. His brother owns a construction company and is looking for an estimator. Kevin told his brother I was once an architect and his brother said he'd give me an interview if I was interested. He left his brother's card with me. I really want to hate Kevin, but he does actually seem to be a genuinely nice person, which also pisses me off. His self-deprecating sense of humor grows on you fast, and this is just in 5 to 10 minute interactions with him. But at the same time, fuck that guy. I talked to Emily via text this past Friday. We agreed to meet the next day for lunch. I suggested this Italian place that had been our place, but she got a little upset about this and I thought she was going to cancel. Instead we pivoted to Applebee's. Seeing her in person I can't even describe. She was just as beautiful as ever. The hello hug caused a shiver through my spine, I didn't want to let go, and may have lingered for just a second, but also didn't want to make it weird. We exchanged pleasantries and small talk through the ordering, and at that point the conversation took the first serious turn since my return, and it stayed that way for the next hour as we talked. She told me how hard it was to deal with my death. She was pregnant and grieving, and a lot of days didn't want to carry on. It hurt so bad to listen to what she was going through. She told me she felt so alone anytime she was in our apartment that she spent most nights staying at her parents' or mine. She kept hoping that every time the phone rang it would be someone with news about me, and then began to hope it wasn't, because as time went on it became more likely that it would be a call that they found my body. She told me about how great my parents, and to a lesser degree my siblings had been to her. Mysil and her even had slightly overlapping pregnancies so it was fun to have someone to talk to about it. It was after Paul's first birthday, that my parents of all people, talked to her about getting back out there. She admitted she was really only spending time with her parents, or Mysil and by extension my brother. She said she even fell off hanging out with her best friend. Emily told me it was fear. She never wanted to be away from Paul, if I could disappear in an instant, then that means anyone could. She wouldn't be able to live without him. After this intervention, she realized she was living like a widow and not a 25-year-old woman. She began hanging out with her friends again, let others watch Paul occasionally so she could go out. It was 2 months into her attempts at living life that she ran into Kevin. They were in a Starbucks, she was fumbling trying to get her phone out while holding Paul. When suddenly this tall handsome fucker, my words, comes up and scans his phone, buying her coffee and muffin. They strike up a conversation while waiting. When her order gets called, he grabs it and hands it to her along with a business card with his cell number on it. Kevin owns a screen printing shop. Tells her, no pressure, but I'd like to get to know you better. Then they part ways. She called him the next day. 4 months later she introduced Paul to him. A year later they moved in with him and a few months ago they got engaged. This is where I said my piece. I told her I still loved her, that it's impossibly hard to see her with someone else. The idea of getting back to her was one of the few things that kept me going when I was locked away. She began to cry, and I reached out and took her hand. I asked if she was sure, or if there was any way we could try again. In hindsight I feel like this was a dick move, but at the time I needed to know. She shook her head. Looked up at me and said, I love you, I never stopped, but I love Kevin too, and I'm marrying him. It's not fair, I know it's not fair, you didn't do anything wrong, but I had to move on. I spent years thinking you had died. When you came back I was so happy, but also so guilty. I cut her off there. You have nothing to feel guilty about, I fucked up and cost myself everything. I always knew you'd likely moved on, and I don't fault you for that. I was gone, there was no reason for you to believe I was coming back, but I did dream that I'd find my way back and you'd be there when I returned. I realized that was unrealistic. I'm sorry for putting you in this position now. She said, it's okay, I knew this was coming eventually. We just kind of stopped talking at that point. Sat there just drinking our drinks. After a few minutes that seemed like eternity, she said, how do you want to move forward when it comes to Paul? I told her, I love him already and want to be in his life. She replied, I'm so happy for that, I always told him about you, I didn't want him to think he was abandoned. I said, he is the one bright spot in this whole situation. From there she told me that Kevin had planned to adopt him once they were married but wouldn't now that I have returned. I am listed on the birth certificate as the father, although I think I'll meet with a lawyer just to make sure everything is in place from a legal standpoint. We made some plans to meet together later in the week with Paul. Let him have fun with all of his parents at the same time. She also encouraged me to do more one-on-ones with him. At the end we hugged one more time and parted ways. When I got back to my parents' house and in my room, I broke down. The finality of it all was just too much. After I recovered I decided I was not going to wallow in my grief anymore. I needed to swallow some pride, and get on track to do something with myself. The next day I called Kevin's brother and did an interview that day. He hired me. This is the first step towards moving on. Holy shit, you are not gonna believe what I'm about to tell you. These last 6 months have been nothing short of absolutely fucking crazy, but in a good way. After my first initial face-to-face with Emily, I decided I needed to move on with my life, and I ended up getting hired to be an estimator for Kevin's brother Kyle's, 36M, construction company. It was going well, and at about the 2-month mark Kyle, knowing I was an architect, started asking me to design some of his custom builds and would compare them to the usual architect he was using. He was liking mine better, and while I still work as an estimator still, I am now solely designing the custom homes for Kyle, and he gave me a huge raise. This allowed me to get my own apartment, and I'm thankful to say I am no longer living in my parents' house. Emily and Kevin's wedding plans progressed with only one major change. My father was no longer walking her down the aisle, as everyone felt it was inappropriate given my return. Her much older brother was going to take that role now. Emily was an oops baby, so her brother is 16 years older than her. After our initial lunch, I saw Emily a lot more often. We were making it a point to do something all together with Paul at least once a week. Kevin was there as well, but they kept the couple behavior to a minimum. It was fun. I especially enjoyed getting to talk to Emily and just be around her. After a month of this back-to-school season hit. I guess in the screen printing industry this is the busy season. Which I guess makes sense with fall sports, staff shirts, clubs, Greek life. Kevin has contracts with all the school districts and is used heavily by the local colleges in the area. He became swamped at this time. Which led to Emily, Paul, and I spending a lot more time just the three of us. Over the months of this we became a lot closer. Hello side hugs became lingering full front hugs. Emily and I would talk about all sorts of things. It kind of reminded of me when we were first dating. After a couple of months Kevin began joining us all again. This didn't dissuade Emily and I from rebuilding our friendship. And then the most amazing thing happened. Paul started calling me Dad. I literally teared up like the first 10 times he did this. Life went on for the next couple of months. It was a week before the wedding. I was not going to attend, my parents were as guests only. That weekend they decided to have semi-combined bachelor/bachelorette parties. Each was going out to dinner with friends, then friends activity, her karaoke him Topgolf, then they'd all meet up at a bar or club around 11 p.m. I wasn't involved in any of this and had no idea which place they were going to end at. I decided I was going out that night instead of just sitting in my apartment being a dud. It was a hard night for me as it was another reminder that I had lost her to someone else. No matter how good of a dude he was, I still hated it. It was around 10:30 that night, I had a good buzz, and was planning on getting an Uber home when Emily and her bachelorette crew walked in. I kind of hid in the crowd at first, not wanting to but into her night, but she spotted me. Emily came over and we began to talk. It was a little bit flirty. A song she loved came on and she began to dance, then dance on me. I joined in and we were laughing and having fun. As the song ended she kind of stumbled into me, I caught her and we looked at each other. Our lips moved in close and we almost kissed when she pulled back. We laughed it off and moved to the bar to get a drink. It was probably a good thing we didn't kiss because about 2 minutes later Kevin came walking up. He was trying to be his usual self but seemed a little off. They kissed, and I began to feel like the third wheel, so I went ahead and ordered that Uber and headed home. The next day I'm a little hungover and slept in pretty heavy on my lazy Sunday. It was midday and I hear someone try and open my door. It was locked and they began knocking heavily. I ran over and opened the door. It was Emily. She lunged into my arms and kissed me. It was the sweetest feeling I have ever felt. Confusing, but sweet. I asked her what was going on. She said, Kevin came to me this morning, and started asking some hard questions. I don't want to go into it, I promise I'll tell you everything one day, but I'm in no place to do so now. We decided to end things. I admitted my feelings were still strong for you. He said he understood, that it hurt but that he knew. He said we both deserve to be happy, and he is going to step away. I called your parents, they are good keeping Paul a bit longer. I love you and want to be with you, and I'm suspecting you feel the same way. I told her that was all I ever wanted. It's been a whirlwind. She had 2 bags packed for her and Paul and they moved in with me that same day. The next day my father went to visit Kevin. He told me Kevin looked a little hungover and had taken the day off. They had a talk and my dad tried to be as empathetic as he could. He just wanted to check on him as Kevin had been a large part of their lives over the past few years. He asked Kevin what he was going to do. He said beyond trying to get some deposits back he had no idea. My father offered to refund him his money and take over the reservations. He didn't ask why, my father thinks he knew. While this was going on I had to go into work and face Kyle. He called me into his office upon my arrival. Kyle had me sit and began, just let me say my business. I'm angry, my brother tells me to let it go and I will. I want to take that anger out on you but I'm not going to. My brother and I learned the hard lesson back in high school when it comes to revenge and swore we'd always be the bigger men going forward, but that's not a tale for now. I think it's best we part ways, my family needs time to heal. I won't leave you high and dry though. You get 1 week paid off here, in that time I want you to speak to an acquaintance of mine Lee. Lee runs a construction company as well, and he says he will take you on at your current salary. It's commercial instead of residential but you'll do fine. I stood up and started to thank him but he cut me off, this isn't for you, it's for Kev. Now go get your things and get up out of here. I contacted Lee the same day. He told me I could start in 2 weeks. Once my father came back and said he now had control of the wedding accommodations. Emily and I just looked at each other and knew we each wanted this. It wasn't the wedding we always wanted, we planned on getting married on a beach. It was Kevin that wanted the traditional wedding. In the end he was right though, we had an amazing time. Jorge was my best man. She looked stunning in her dress. Getting me a tux rental on short notice was probably the biggest headache but that worked out too. Neither of us had huge friend or family groups, but it was nice to enjoy celebrating with those that had supported us through all these dark times. It's been a month now since our wedding. I still can't believe it. Paul had a little trouble adjusting. He does miss Kevin, but he has seemed happier the last week. To be where I once was and be where I am now, I consider myself beyond lucky. Next story. I discovered that my husband faked his own death to cover up his depravity. Part 1. Fiction. Kevin's story. I need to know if I am overreacting. This situation was already crazy. I'll give a quick TLDR, but it's an unbelievable story. I, Emily 35F, have been married to my husband Walt for 6 years. We have 2 kids, Paul 10M and Brian 5M. 11 years ago when Walt and I were engaged, he went missing during a vacation trip to Thailand. He was missing for nearly 5 years, and told us all he had been in a Cambodian prison that whole time. I found out right after he left for the trip I was pregnant with Paul. I became extremely close with his family during this time. I also met and fell in love with a man named Kevin, who I was engaged to. When Walt returned, I found myself torn between picking up where we left off and continuing with Kevin. I chose to give Walt and I a chance. We got married a week later and I was pregnant with Brian in less than a year. I thought things had been fine in our relationship. We loved each other, and despite him being a workaholic, we were mostly happy. I have never been one to indulge myself with a professional massage. I like having my shoulders or feet rubbed by Walt. It's just to me a luxury expense and I haven't ever been willing to go. Walt's been a little bit more distant lately and I have been feeling a little stressed with work. I have this coworker who has been pushing me, saying the place she goes is amazing. It doesn't matter who you get, they're all good, and to just go. I did just that. I walked in and asked if they had any availability. The guy at the desk said they did and took down some information. He said it would just be like 5 to 10 minutes. That's when I noticed the small bulletin behind the desk had 3 pictures from the security camera and a note above that said, "Permanent ban." I did a double take and swore that the one guy looks just like Walt. I'm staring at this picture when the front desk attendant asks if something's wrong. I tell him, I think I know that guy in the picture, how do you get on a banned list? He says, oh, it's our owner's policy if anyone asks for a happy ending. I was aghast at that moment, people do that? He replied, yeah, not very often, it's rare, but it does happen, and sadly it seems to always happen to the same person. He then apologized for oversharing, and I told him not to worry about it. He said Lisa was ready for me. She was standing at the entrance of the hall. She was a maybe 5 feet 1 inch and 110 pounds Asian American woman. I just had a feeling this was the massage therapist that always got these creeps. We went back and I enjoyed the massage with some light small talk. Her accent was totally Midwestern. This was a woman who grew up here, and probably several generations before had as well. I found out she had worked at this particular place for 3 years. As we finished, I couldn't help myself and I had to know, so I just came with the truth. This is very hard to say, but I noticed the list of banned guys, one of them is my husband. Were you by chance his massage therapist? She looked at me with genuine concerns as my eyes filled and said, I had to be because all 3 guys were my clients. Which one was he? I said, the one in the orange shirt. She said, oh, yes, I'm very sorry. I began to cry, and said, no, I'm sorry, I'm so embarrassed, and so sorry, I can't believe he did that to you. Did he just outright ask? She said, this is going to be hard to hear, but you need to know the truth if that's your husband. I brought him into the room same as you and left while he got ready. When I knocked he said he was ready, but when I walked in he was laying face up, fully erect and holding some amount of cash. I immediately left the room and called for Jake, our front desk guy. He escorted the man out. I wanted to throw up. I composed myself and apologized again. I ended giving her like a $100 tip. I went straight home, and began prepping to leave. Then this sudden wave of calm hit me, and I realized I needed to know how far this went. I did my best to play normal. When he finally got home from work, I just treated it like a normal night. When he went to bed, I used the opportunity to go through his phone. Texts were clean, no Snapchat, WhatsApp, etc. I clicked on his Reddit. There were his 4 posts from when he came back home from his imprisonment. I had seen these before. I was about to give up when I noticed I could switch between accounts. I was disgusted by what I found. He was joined to all Asian women fetish subs and massage subs. The chats were worse. As I read through them, most were just faceless women, probably men pretending actually, that he was sexting with. But there was one, that he was definitely seeing. There were details of meetups, and how much he would pay. What he wanted her to wear or do. He was paying a sex worker for happy ending massages. He kept referring to her as Sok. A quick Google search told me this was a common Cambodian name, probably wasn't really her name, but he was paying for the fantasy. There was another conversation on there, which as I read seemed very familiar. That's when I realized it was Jorge on the other end. They were both covering for each other for years through various affairs. As I scrolled through their long conversation history, I came across the most knife-twisting part. They had been just talking bullshit like any other time, and Walt was telling him about his upcoming appointment. Jorge says, "I bet you wish you could have just stayed in Cambodia, not have to do all this shit." Walt replies, "Fuck yeah, but what are you gonna do? I got deported lol." Jorge follows, "Well, you were cheating on her too. I'm surprised she didn't turn you in the first time she caught you." Walt, "Yeah, she was still holding out hope until the second time. It was all fake. It was lies, he was never in prison. He left me. I slept on the couch that night and told him I just fell asleep out there. The next day I asked Jorge to come meet me on the pretense of needing help with something. When he arrived, I showed him the evidence I had of his affair, and told him it was going to his whole family if he didn't tell me the whole truth right now. Jorge laid it all out to me. Walt has been obsessed with Asian porn since high school. Notably happy ending massage fantasy. When we started together, it was because I had the right optics. Jorge said Walt does love me as his wife, he just has this addiction. I told him to stop with that shit, and let me know about Cambodia. Prior to his trip, Walt had been engaging in an online affair with a Cambodian woman for 2 years. That means it started after we were together. Our bachelor trip was his chance to meet up with her in person. What I didn't know is he had gotten his passport and visas for both Thailand and Cambodia. Jorge didn't want to go to Cambodia, and Walt had only ever mentioned a desire to visit Thailand, so that became their cover. They arrived the first morning and took a week's worth of selfies together around the resort. At that point Walt left and went to meet this woman in Cambodia. He was there for 3 days with her, when he decided he was in love. She was from a well enough off family. He wanted more. So he and Jorge concocted his disappearance. At first he was only going to stay for the first 30 days, then show back up, but when it was done he got his visa extended another 30 days. He couldn't extend it past that, so he just didn't. He hid there with her. However, being the shitty person he is, he began cheating on her as well. She caught him and kept him around because he was telling her he would help her immigrate to the States as his wife. After 4.5 years she caught him again, and not only dumped him but reported him, and he got deported. He had to come clean to his parents, who I had grown close to. They feared losing contact with their grandson and chose to hide all of this from me. Which was a betrayal so hard to hear after being in each other's lives for so long. They also told Walt to leave me alone, but at the same time wanted him to have a relationship with our son. WTF, I don't how they thought those two things wouldn't conflict. He ignored that and made the effort to rekindle our relationship. When he had won, his dad made him marry me right away and told him to stop all of his terrible behaviors. He was hoping this would straighten Walt out now that he had his fun. Instead, all that happened was I threw away the best guy in the world for a workaholic porn addict with a creepy fetish. I feel so stupid. I headed home. I knew Jorge would inform Walt. I went ahead and sent Jorge's whole family the evidence of his infidelity. I then sent Walt's out to everyone I knew as well. By time Walt came home, which was way earlier than he ever had, he was fuming and getting bombarded with messages. I already had my car loaded with mine and kids' things. My best friend had taken the kids earlier. Walt came at me with attitude and I was ready to fight. He switched approaches and I tried to gaslight me and explain. I wasn't having it. I told him I knew about everything, Cambodia, the porn, the sex worker. He told me she's not a sex worker, just a college student in need of extra money. I screamed back at him, that's fucking worse, now you're just taking advantage of a young girl in need. He suddenly shut up after that, and I told him he could expect divorce papers and nothing else. Then I left. It's been a few weeks. I feel like an idiot for not figuring this out. I'm starting to notice the signs I overlooked and that I was keeping myself blind to them. The long hours at work even though we don't need it, the starting of his own bank account from our joint account, the fact he signs up or agrees to every business trip or conference. It was just his way of feeding his depravity. The worst part is he came back for me. He could have came back and left me alone. I could have married Kevin, and now knowing what I gave him up for, I hate myself even more. Now, where I am getting some push that I'm overreacting. I am pushing for 100% custody and no visitation for him in the interim. I have evidence of porn addiction, work addiction, and visiting sex workers. I am also going 100% no contact with his parents. A few people, not many, are saying I should not try to cut the father and grandparents out of my kids' lives. I however disagree and feel Walt is a danger to them given his self-destructive and manipulative behavior. His parents will only get the time he gets, and at this point, I'm at best offering weekly supervised visits. Otherwise they are not to be in my life to any degree. What do you all think? Is this too much? Should I let them be in my kids' lives? He is a good father when he's there, and they are great grandparents, but I can't get over the fact it's all built on lies and manipulation. So last year something unexpected happened. I was in a bitter custody dispute with my lying, cheating ex-husband. Ever since I found out about his cheating 3 years earlier, he had been making my life hell. The divorce took forever, he snowballed the price of our house, and then he fought every custody decision along the way. The unexpected thing was my ex-fiancé, Kevin, figured out that my ex-husband was bragging about this on Reddit. Out of nowhere he emailed me the evidence and it helped tremendously in court. I was really excited when I first heard from Kevin, and tried to engage with him on a personal level. He didn't want that, and I understood. I hurt him more than he ever deserved. I wish I could go back and do it all over again, because believe me, hindsight is 20/20, and this was probably the biggest mistake of my life. Although I attempted to reach him, he blocked me. When he did that, I took the hint and let it go. However, I can't stop thinking about him. I just feel like he wouldn't have helped me like that if he didn't still have some sort of feelings for me. He very well could have just turned the other cheek. I'm really thinking about reaching out to him. I don't know what his relationship status is, but I think it's worth a shot. I honestly never thought I would hear from him again. So it almost feels like fate that he was the one to save me. I've been checking around the different platforms and it seems he still doesn't do social media. I know his email, so I'm thinking about creating a new one so I can message him. If he tells me he's married or seeing someone, I'll let this go, but at this point I feel like I need to try. I'm still kicking myself for letting him go all those years ago. He was really the most wonderful man and a great dad to my son. This has to be my chance at make things right, don't you think? Would you go for it? I think I'm going to go for it. Next story. I was engaged, then her ex-fiancé came back from the dead. Now I'm alone and so tired of being the bigger person. Part 1. Fiction. Walt's story. This is my first time ever posting. A friend of mine suggested this as a place to vent into the void. I, Kevin 35M, was engaged to my amazing fiancée Emily, 30F. We met at Starbucks almost 4 years ago now. I saw this mom struggling in the line, so I went up and just paid for her coffee and muffin. I really didn't have any expectations, but we started talking. I noticed she didn't have a ring on her finger, and decided I'd shoot my shot. I didn't want to be awkward, so I just slipped her my business card with me cell on it and told her no pressure, figured if she was married she could just toss the card. I was ecstatic when she called me the next day. Our relationship took off fast, and I have to admit I was in love from the start. She had some trauma she had to deal with. I was the first relationship she had since her fiancé had gone missing nearly 2 years earlier. I was sympathetic, I knew what it was like. I buried my first true love. I had met a girl in college, Jocelyn. We were together for 5 years, engaged, when she was taken from me in a car accident. It took me 2 full years to move on, and I'm still not 100%. Emily wasn't my first date after losing Jocelyn, but she was the first that made me feel that spark. I met her son officially some months later. Paul was the sweetest boy, I bonded with him quickly. They moved in with me, and I knew this is what I wanted out of life. She was still struggling with the loss of her fiancé. He had gone on a guy's trip to Thailand and never came back. He had just disappeared and was presumed dead. I really put in the work to help her overcome that grief. I handled it when she cried after our first kiss because it was so different. I took things slow while she came to terms with being intimate with someone new. Held her hand on the bad days, and celebrated the good. I knew what it was like, and I didn't want her to have to feel that way alone, like I made myself do. We had been engaged about 2 months when everything started to go south. Her ex-fiancé came back from the dead. He had been gone almost 5 years when his father, who Emily is still very close with and I had come to have a great relationship with, came to our home. He told us that Walt was back, he was alive and well. He told us a story about being trapped in a Cambodian prison. Which, if I'm being honest, still doesn't make any sense. Like you were just lost in the shuffle. They never once let you make a phone call. Maybe in 1979, but not in 2019. I brought this up to Emily once and she didn't want to hear it. I knew to be supportive at first. There was guilt there. I could understand that. They all gave up on finding him. They even had a memorial service. I was actually pretty relieved when Emily didn't want to meet him right away. I remember when I first met Walt. There was something about him that just seemed off to me. I didn't say anything about that, but did make the effort to let him know I wanted what was best for Emily and Paul. I even got the guy a job working for my brother Kyle. I didn't ever want to deny him his son, but I really needed him to understand that this was going to be hard on the people he left behind. We were plenty cordial with each other, but I will admit I played a bit overly nice, especially since I'm pretty sure he was cussing me under his breath. Once they met in person, it was the beginning of the end. My whole life I've been the bigger person, except for one time in high school. However, watching my fiancé have an emotional affair, right in front of my face for the next 4 months was a bit much even for me. I know he was her son's father, but they got real close real quick. I would bring my feelings on this to her and she said it was just natural to them. That they had been together a long time before he was taken from her, but there was nothing romantic there anymore. She was with me now, not him. I bought the reassurances for far too long. At our bachelor/bachelorette party I saw them almost kiss. I knew then that the EA wouldn't end, and would at some point become a physical affair if I didn't do something. I decided I had to take this head on the very next morning. We were 6 days from wedding bells. I asked her to talk to me. I asked, "Are you falling back in love with Walt?" She was taken aback for a moment. I never completely stopped. A part of me will always love him. We were separated through circumstances, not by either of our own failings, but I've told you, there's nothing more between us. I pushed forward. I saw last night. I know you both thought I got there after, but I saw you dance, I saw you almost kiss. I just want to know if you want him more than you want me." She began to cry. "No, I made a commitment to you, I will not go back on it. Sure, there are still feelings, can you blame me, but I love you as well." I told her, "That isn't very reassuring, it sounds more like you are staying with me out of obligation than love." She got defensive. "I do love you, I'm marrying you." I calmly asked, "When you picture yourself walking down that aisle, who do you picture standing at the end?" She was tearing up even heavier. "I'm sorry, it's just hard now that he's back." I said, I know what it is like to lose someone, I don't know how it feels to get them back." "I'm sure it's hard." Emily interrupted, "It's impossible. I just can't stop how I feel. I'm so sorry." I hugged her tight. "If you want to be with him, you need to tell me, it gets so much harder after next week. I only want you to be happy, with no regrets. Now, do you want to be with him?" She just nodded her head and sobbed harder. I broke down too. It was one of the most painful moments of my life. We talked on about fairness. She wavered in her choice for a moment, but came back to him. I could sense a weight had come off of her. She began to pack. I asked if I could still be in Paul's life. She said that would make her so happy. In a last moment, before she walked out forever, I told her I loved her and to take care of herself. I said, "I know you don't want to hear this, but that prison story has never sat right with me, just promise me you will be careful." She just nodded, turned and left. I completely fell apart. I was left with the daunting task of telling my family, who all adored Emily, and getting back as much money as I could from the deposits. My brother was so angry, he wanted to fire him. I asked him not to, that this man would be providing for Paul now. He calmed, and said he would call Lee up and see if Lee could use him. The next day the eldest Paul, my almost father-in-law, came by. We had always had a good rapport. He came to make things right in a way, but I knew he also wanted to see his son marry Emily. When he offered to cover the return of all my deposits, I knew what he was doing. He was going to give them the chance to get married. I wanted to tell him to shove it, but I didn't. Always the bigger person, always letting it go. She came and got the rest of her stuff that week and let me know they were marrying. All of this happened 9 months ago. I've seen on their social media they act like the happy couple. Everyone comments how happy they are for them. They say it was fate, that some divine force let him survive his imprisonment and come back to her. Then this week they announced that Emily was pregnant. Very few people have reached out to me, especially from our mutual circle. It's like they forgot I'm a person too. I guess I was just supposed to be okay with everything because I didn't make a scene. I feel betrayed, I'm broken. My first ever girlfriend cheated, my second died, and now I asked my fiancé to true love. This house I live in used to be filled with hope for the future, now it just has me wallowing in self-pity. I was only able to see Paul twice this whole time, both of those in the first month. Then the separating me from their loves began. That's been the hardest part. I miss my little buddy. This was a boy who called me dad, who sat on my lap every single night while I read him a story from his 5-minute Marvel books. He would fall asleep on me every day and I would go lay him in his bed. You don't just turn that off, I miss him so much. I just don't get it, how is this fair? I never cheated, I never raised my voice, I treated her with respect, care, love. And somehow I feel like I'm viewed as the bad guy in this story. How am I the one who deserves to be punished? I just wanted to raise Paul as my own, to love his mother and wake up to her every day, to give them the best life I could. Where is the justice in this? Where? I don't expect anyone to feel sorry for me, we all have our losses. I just needed to get this off my chest. When we walked back in together, Tyler and Zach were standing there in the middle of the room together. Tyler was redressed, and my girlfriend was standing with them. When they saw us, she just turned and ran out the other side of the room. I will never forget the shocked face on Tyler and Zach. We didn't say anything, each of us just walked up and shoved them against the wall, then stepped back, giving them the universal, "come on," sign. I could see in their eyes they wanted nothing to do with us. They had always built themselves on being the big badasses. Really, they were just bullies. They picked on smaller guys and easy targets. Now they messed up. Here were two guys, that weren't as big and strong, but were fit and confident, saying, "Let's find out." They had no choice, it was either fight or give up that bad boy reputation. I mean, there were a couple dozen people standing around watching. When they charged us, it wasn't a fight, it was a massacre. In addition to the usual bloody noses and black eyes, I had also broken Tyler's jaw. Kyle had cracked Zach's ribs. Each of them missed a few weeks of the season. When the colleges inquired as to why they were injured, it didn't take long for them to find out it was because of a fight. They stopped calling. We always wondered if law enforcement would get involved, they never did. Our father gave us one hell of speech though. I've carried that with me ever since. Those two were jerks, but I felt like I took their future away. They both came from broke homes and were just scared kids. They didn't have what me and Kyle had. They never ended up going to college, and here 25 years later I know they never left our hometown or really amounted to anything. I have been the bigger person every day since then. Now I was standing here being threatened by the person I despise the most in this entire world. I shoved him back, and when he stepped forward again he got met with a quick jab and hard right hook. He flopped on the floor like a fish, trying to get up but too woozy to steady himself. Carly came over and he started to cry a little. We walked him out to his car and put him in the driver's seat. About 7 minutes later he started it and drove off. I don't feel the least bit bad. In fact, I feel amazing. I have wanted to do that for almost 10 years, and now only kick myself because I should have done that a long time ago. Emily got into contact with me. She had a new email account. I did not read it, just blocked her again. Then she did the same thing again. This time I did read it. It was a semi-long email. It basically said, "Thank you for your help, I'm sorry for the choices I made, I bet you are, I'd like to meet, catch up, and show a little appreciation for the help with my ex." Obviously it wasn't worded this way, but that's the gist. I showed it to Carly, and she said there is no doubt in her mind that Emily wants to get back together with me, telling me that the tone is flirty. She then asked me what I thought about that. I said, I would rather cut my own feet off. I'm just going to block her again. Carly said to me, I don't think she will get the hint anytime soon, she's not outright saying it, so I think you should meet and make it perfectly clear you're not interested, give you a little more practice at being petty. She said the last part with a laugh. I agreed to give it a shot. I responded to the email and said I'd be willing to do a friendly one-time meet-up. She asked if the next day would be fine and I replied yes. She then sent back to meet her at noon at the Starbucks on Spring Mill Road. The very Starbucks we met at all those years ago. I told her under no circumstances was she to bring Paul, and she swore she would not. She ended up sticking to that because had she not, I would have walked out. I arrived before she did, grabbed a drink and a table. When she came in she walked over to me and went for the hug. I rejected it and gave her the handshake. She seemed a little sad, and I began question this choice. She excused herself to get a drink and then came back. I sat there staring at her, waiting for her to say something first. She finally began, "You look really good." I replied, "Thanks, I go hit the bags with the MMA guys sometimes." "Emily, I thought you were into boxing." Slightly annoyed by the small talk, "I am, but the MMA gym is close to the house and they obviously work boxing too, but I doubt this is why you wanted to meet." She began telling me about what she found out about Walt. I stopped her and told her I already knew. I also told her about him attacking me a year ago. Then came what Carly told me to expect, "I'm sorry for what happened between us. I made a huge mistake. I let this Hollywood ideal of lost love get in my head. It was a very traumatic time for me as well. I just can't begin to tell you how sorry I am. I was hoping you could find a way to forgive me, or give me a chance to earn that forgiveness. I deadpan said, I got over all of that a long time ago. My distaste for Walt was much stronger. I'm glad your situation worked out, but I did that for your kids. She became a bit more overt. I just have this feeling, like there could still be something there. I have regretted losing you for quite a while now, and I just feel like fate brought you back. I mean, what are the odds you of all people would find those Reddit posts? I just have this feeling that the universe is trying to bring us back together. I was about to reply, but Carly's timing was perfect. She had been listening via speakerphone. As she came in, she smiled at me and said, "Hey Kev, you ready to go?" She then gave me a kiss that lingered a little longer than normal for public. She looked at Emily and extended her hand. "You must be his ex-fiancée, Emily." Emily looked a little annoyed. "Yeah, Kevin didn't mention he was dating anyone. I guess he likes them young now." She said that like it was a dig at the both of us. Carly laughed and said with a smile, "Oh honey, you're sweet. I'm a 39-year-old mother of two, but I'll take the compliment nonetheless. I don't get called young too often. Also, I'm his wife, of the last 7 years." She then posed her stance in a way that really accentuated her amazing figure. Emily looked a little shocked. "Kevin, why didn't you tell me you were married?" I stood up prepared to leave with my wife. "You never asked, plus I wanted you to know no one was waiting around for you." At that point we headed out. I guess I'm realizing now that I never mentioned that in my post either. I met Carly about a year after my engagement ended. We've been married almost 7 years, but I won't fault my wife for rounding up. We have 5-year-old daughter and her 14-year-old son from her first marriage. His dad is not a D-bag and we get along well. My stepson calls me Kevin, probably always will, but we still have a really good relationship I wouldn't trade for anything. When we got back into the car, Carly looked at me and said, "See, it's fun to be petty sometimes." I just nodded and thought to myself, yeah, it really was. I haven't gotten another email from Emily, so I'm thinking she got the hint. I'm having a baby tomorrow and I'm not ready for what's ahead. So yeah, basically I made a really stupid mistake. I was fat and I was closed off from the world and I didn't leave my house. I made one friend and I got out and became a completely different person. I met somebody and we are now having a baby. I was never with any guy in even a stupid relationship way and definitely not sexually before him. He's never been in a relationship with me and it's been over a year of us doing stuff. He has other kids and he's currently messing with another girl who recently had a baby that isn't his. He was there for this girl with her whole pregnancy too. I found out about what he had with her a day before I found out I was pregnant. I don't have anybody to show me how to be a mom and I don't know anything. I don't know what to do. I don't want to live this life anymore. Edit. I don't want anybody to believe what I've wrote means that I don't love my baby or have the resources to take care of her. I just don't know if me as what I am now is mentally able to handle this. I never thought I'd have a baby. I have a thing about being alone and that's how I feel. I'm completely terrified of being a bad mom and not teaching her the right things in this messed up world. We never know what to expect with anything. I thank everybody for their advice and support. I have a long road ahead of me and a lot of decisions I still have to make. Edit 2, abortion isn't an option, obviously. If I wanted that then I wouldn't be having a baby in 10 hours. I've stated I absolutely love my baby and wouldn't have aborted her even if I did not want to raise her myself. I took the action to create her and it's not fair for me to just throw away a life due to my actions and not wanting to face reality. Next story. I have been wearing duct tape bras instead of real ones all week. I have huge boobs. So if I sleep on my side the wrong way sometimes I wake up and my chest hurts. I slept so badly the offer day that I think I pulled a muscle in my chest. When I woke up it hurt so bad that I couldn't even move my arm/shoulder to get out of that position. My chest right over my sternum had been sore and only getting worse for a few days. Every movement of my arms hurt, and especially any movement of my boobs hurt. If my boobs moved or shifted even in my bra, they pulled on my chest and caused some pain. Even though bras support me, gravity still works and boobs kind of act like a liquid in a bag, so they moved enough to cause pain. I found that if I held my boobs while bending over/walking, my chest didn't hurt. Out of desperation, I grabbed duct tape and hit my boobs with like 10 layers, and I have never been so comfortable. No band digging into my back and no straps cutting into my shoulders and no boobs pulling on my chest uncomfortably. It also looks fine with a shirt on. Do I have worn this to work? It looks psychotic without a shirt, lol. The tape is mildly irritating to the skin, but it's still less painful. I either shower the tape off or sweat it off by the end of the day. Obviously this isn't a permanent solution, but it is working. Edit. Thanks for all the awards and advice. While I appreciate all the offers for boob tape, I am no longer in need. I've felt great the last few days and have had no pain. A lot of people recommended reduction, which I would love to do, but there are numerous reasons why I'm not considering it at the moment, but it is something I've always dreamed of. Here is an image, not of me, demonstrating how I applied the tape. Hope this clears some things up. Next story. I'm a dirty person and forget it's not normal. I just went out with some friends and they parked at my apartment. They were going to get an Uber home but came inside to smoke real quick. I didn't really think much of the state of my place, but they lost it and made jokes the whole time about how dirty it was. Didn't even want to sit down anywhere or hang out. I could tell the wish they never came inside. I do struggle with depression, and that's a big part of it. I feel so exhausted by the smallest tasks sometimes. I personally didn't think it was that bad, but I also know I'm used to it because this was also how I grew up. I want to change, don't get me wrong, it's just hard to break a cycle. Just feeling so embarrassed and lost. Next one. I left a note on my boss's computer saying one of our coworkers was snorting Xanax in the bathroom. They got fired. I had this coworker who was hiding their drug addiction. They would go to the bathroom for 30+ minutes and come back with their eyes dilated, acting weird, and would avoid ringing people out for hours. At the end of the night, their drawer would be missing a ton of money, or they would be overcharging people on their debit cards. A lot of people noticed their change in behavior after going to the bathroom, but no one knew why. I used to take Xanax for anxiety, so one day I went to the bathroom after this person did. I saw white powder on the sink and they stupidly left a pill on the floor. I immediately recognized it and put 2 and 2 together. My boss a few days before was talking to the ASM about them and if they noticed any changes in their work and behavior. When no one was around, I wrote on a sticky note that I found Xanax in the bathroom and that they went before me. I taped the pill to the sticky note as well, probably not smart, but he found the note 5 minutes after I put it there. He talked to them about what he was told and they confessed that they were doing drugs in the bathroom. They were fired immediately. I felt bad. The company had resources for mental health and drug addiction, so I thought that's what would happen, but they were doing it at work. My boss had to fire them. A year later, they came into work to purchase some things and told us that they went to rehab after being fired. They were 6 months sober and had a job where they were helping them with their recovery. They said that being fired was the cherry on top for them. Their past 2 jobs also fired them for doing drugs at work. So it was a big wake-up call for them. They looked really good and happy. We were all proud. Still to this day, no one knows it was me that made that note. Edit. The powder was white, so it could have been coke, but I recognized the bar. This person told the team when they first started that they used to be addicted to heroin and Xanax. I had confronted them about their behavior before and they said they were tired and had things going on at home. A few other coworkers did the same thing and got the same answer: should have gone to manager face to face instead of the sneaky note. I didn't know what to do at the time. I have never run into this before. I've learned from it for sure. Next story. I don't think my dad is actually my biological dad. I am 23F and I recently got diagnosed with a genetic blood clotting disorder. Which is fine, except no one else in my family, nor extended family, have this genetic blood clotting disorder. I've been asking family and they've all said they do not know someone who has had a blood clot. Recently, my sister had an emergency surgery and I asked my mom if said sister should get genetically tested for it because a surgery is what triggered my factor 5 to activate. I have factor 5 Leiden. My mom told me to stop asking people if they have it and that she is confident my sister doesn't have it. My mom had 5 kids and we all have the same dad allegedly. Part of me thinks we don't, or at least, I don't have the same dad. Next story. I can't take the self-diagnosed mental health issues anymore. I am a 33F, ADHD diagnosed woman. Got the diagnosis in 1996 after almost failing school. The whole treatment I was subjected to was to help me control symptoms and live better in society, not inconvenience myself and others. I have some real autistic friends with the same outlook. Now in the past goddamn 7 years I have to listen to absolute nonsense in the internet all the time. A bunch of self-diagnosed people that just use their made-up mental diseases as excuses. That makes the community look so bad. I can't tell any employers I have ADHD because they will presume I will refuse to show up to work and say I have a mental illness, and be a completely entitled and unmanageable mess. I've seen people using ADHD to justify screaming with their partners, cheating, not delivering promises, being lazy, not putting any effort. Ah no, please. My roommate is a 26 years old, wrote me a massage calling my hygiene concerning, and me disrespectful because I left a dish in the sink overnight, and when I confronted her and said she can't talk to me this way she started crying like a big baby and said she doesn't know how to express herself because rot her autism. Is it a carte blanche for you to be a absolute dickhead with no consequence now? I have actual autistic friends, they have issues looking me in the eye and knowing when to talk, but all of them, every single one, can take accountability when you inform them. I just can't take this shit anymore. Another roommate would make my life miserable with every fucking little sound because he had misophonia. Like the light switch sound in my room would get him bitching in his. Never went to a fucking doctor, and now if I complain I won't live in complete silence from 8 I am the non-accommodating monster. There is no goddamn accountability and discomfort anymore, every possible inconvenient feeling now had a CID. Meanwhile I'm the only one actually mentally ill with years of therapy/medication. And I definitely wouldn't be caught dead doing shit like that. I have dignity. Doesn't matter if my ADHD makes it hard to remember shit, it's my responsibility to write it down and make it, I took a commitment. Where's the accountability? Edit, gonna put an edit here I didn't think I would need. If you're thinking, well I am self-diagnosed and I don't do those things. Then the post I sent about you. This post is specifically about people that behave in that specific manner and cover it up with a CID. Not all the mentally ill. Also I'd recommend always trying to get a diagnose, because symptoms of understood mental issues like autism and ADHD manifest in everyone in different shapes and forms. I've heard from 3 different friends that they are afraid they have ADHD because of executive dysfunction issues, and they were just burned out. Can be bad anxiety. Can be trauma. Different solutions. Next story. My therapist made me realize something devastating. My brother just passed away. At that time, my entire family turned on me and kicked me to the curb. In the middle of the night, I drove to my friend's house, sobbing. She's been there for me for years. Anytime my brother's cancer got too bad, I'd stay with her a few days. When I had to donate bone marrow and couldn't do it alone, she went with me. My brother's funeral. She was there. Every step of the way, she's been a rock in my life. So when I appeared at her door, suitcase in hand, no money, job, or even will to live, she welcomed me in with open arms. I've been staying at her place almost a month, and it's been a roller coaster due to my emotions being all over the place. She's helped me through all of it. My therapist the other day asked me how long I've had feelings for her. To say I nearly shit my pants is an understatement. Now I'm suddenly feeling all of those things. I think I've been suppressing them. I'm terrified. What do I even do now? I'm already a mess, and I couldn't imagine she'd ever want to be with me like that. I am at a loss. I just lost my entire family, now I'm scared of making a mistake by telling her and losing her too. Edit. Thank you everyone for your kind words. I'm sorry for freaking out so much. I'm taking sleeping pills and trying to sleep. Thank you again. Edit 2. I went to bed and woke up and had an immediate panic attack over all the comments on here. Not bad, just a lot more than I was expecting. Thank you everyone for your comments. I'll try to reply to some. To clear stuff up, I'm a man. My friend is a gender-fluid AFAB person who goes by she/he depending on the day. My family kicked me out because my mom doesn't want to look at me anymore, says I look too much like Chris. On top of a lot of personal stuff I'd rather not talk about. Therapist's comment was a one-off thing. I don't think it was meant to be malicious, I think he was just curious, or maybe he thought we were a couple. Ick. I'll talk to him. Thanks again everyone for your comments and concerns. Next story. I have major daddy issues that molded me into who I am today. I am a 42-year-old woman, and I am a survivor of sexual abuse. When I told my mother what my father was doing after trying to cut my wrist at 8 years old, I remember her saying to me, "Don't worry, I'll talk to him," like I was telling her he ate my favorite cookie or something. For a while nothing happened, and it was never mentioned again. Then one day me and my siblings were packed in a car with my mom and we were moving across state to live with Grandma, my mother's mom. Still, nothing was ever said about what I told her. We lived there for a few months, and that is when my step-grandpa started doing things to me. I just took it because, well, I really didn't know what else to do. Clearly telling someone just gets me moved into another bad situation, and at least now it doesn't hurt anymore, no penetration. Me and my younger sister would have to stay the night and lot at Grandpa's, and one of us had to sleep with him and the other had to sleep on the couch, and me and my sister would always fight about it. She wanted to sleep on the bed, and I just was not having that. Not for her. So I put myself in that situation. I put myself in his bed. I even fought for that spot. When I was about 12, my mom put me in counseling for being an out-of-control kid, go figure, my very first session, and it was like I projectile vomited all the bullshit all over the counselor, poor lady. I told her about my father and what he did, and about his 2 brothers and what they did, and about my grandpa and what he was doing. She brought my mom into the room and my mom acted like it was the first time hearing this. She still swears she doesn't remember me telling her. Says it must have been so traumatizing that her mind blocked it out. Bullshit. It didn't appear to affect her at all, and I was a very attuned 8-year-old. Anyways, my father got criminal charges, one uncle committed suicide and the other uncle was never even brought up. My grandfather was found out about doing the same stuff to almost all my cousins and got a lot of time, but my father, well, he got 2 years for statutory rape. After my father gets out, he moves in with his mom. My uncle was living there with his 2 daughters, you get where I'm going with this, I'm sure. He gets accused, again, and next thing you know he is at my mom and stepdad's front door, needing to hide. My mom hides him out. She lets him stay the night, knowing there is a lifetime no-contact order, and then the next day they give him a ride to Greyhound. He did get caught finally, and ended up getting 15 years. He is out now, and him and I have been trying to repair our relationship. I love my father. All I ever wanted was my dad. Yes, I am screwed up over it all. I have major issues. Hell, for the longest time I thought I was some sick and twisted kid that imagined and made up sick and twisted shit. I thought I imaged it all. Then one day while sitting in jail I received a letter from my father and it started off with, "I raped you from 3 to 8 years old. I did this because you were the oldest and I thought you could handle it. You are the way you are, self-worth issues, because that is the way I trained you to be." Getting that letter lifted so much weight off my shoulders. I was no longer crazy. I used what happened to me as a reason to reject growth. I turned to drugs and abusive relationships. I went to prison a few times and tried killing myself more times than I can count. I don't know what a healthy relationship is and have never been in one, and I am in my 40s now. I have self-worth issues, trust issues, daddy issues. I had my first kid when I was 15 and was scared shitless to change her or give her baths because I was old. My father did what he did because it was done to him, so I always imagined him doing some sort of Jekyll and Hyde thing and turning into this monster that had no control over his actions and doing these things. So I worried that if that was how it worked, and he did that because it was done to him, well, it was done to me, too, so I wasn't willing to risk that monster getting into me and me doing that to my baby. I was so young and confused and so scared of myself. Anyways, my point to all that is that yes, I allowed it to control my life. I allowed my past hurt and trauma to take the steering wheel and decide everything for me. That lost little girl who had such a distorted view and idea of life because the one person who was supposed to protect her and keep her safe from all the evils of this world was the person who introduced her and was the evil in her world. And that little girl controlled me. Molded me. Made me who I was. But, there came a point in life where I had to say goodbye to that little girl and let go of it and allow myself to grow. If I didn't, I would have just allowed her to drown me. So yeah, here I am, a work in progress. I used to be a victim and I played that well, but once a victim mentality sets in, you are always finding yourself as a victim, and I got tired of living like that, so I am now a survivor. I am able to forgive now. I am able to focus and trying to work on myself and love myself. I am able to help others in my line of work, and I am working on understanding that sex does not equal love, as I was once taught as a child. Wow. I can't believe I just let this all out like this. I haven't been feeling too good with my mental health lately, and I saw a post about someone's mother covering up their father's misconduct with a 16-year-old, and suddenly this all came out. Guess I needed it. Thank you everyone for allowing me this. Next story. Invited to a pool party, ended up being a poo party. Pile of poo. When I was 14, I was invited to a pool party with a bunch of my classmates. The house also belonged to the parents of a girl I had a crush on. Let's just say I ate one too many burgers from the grill and my stomach was in shambles. I scrambled to the bathroom and pulled down my swim trunks, but I didn't make it in time. I ended up shitting all over the bathroom rug. There was nothing I could do to fix the situation and the thought of rolling up the rug and throwing it in the cupboard never crossed my mind. During my state of panic I realized the rug was double-sided, so I flipped it over, cleaned off my feet and went back in the pool. There was never another pool party invitation. 20 years later and I would like to sincerely apologize to the Harper family. Next story. I'm convinced I'm living in an augmented reality. I'm 38 years old and it was just recently, couple years ago I found out my mom was born the same year as my dad and is the same age as him. All my life I swear she was born a few years apart and was a couple years younger. I'm convinced I'm living in an alternative reality and I must have died or something a few years ago, maybe in 2019 when I was in a roll-over car wreck or by suicide that year because I had planned it out and was in a really thought time of my life that year. Ever since that year I've noticed things have been a little off. Little off with friends and family and just the entire world. Then one day I was asking my mom the year she was born and she told me the same year my dad was born. I didn't believe her and I still don't. As I was typing this and rereading it, a towel randomly fell off where it was hanging in the bathroom. There's no breeze in here and the vents aren't even blowing. The house is still. I think that might have been someone from the other veil trying to get my attention. Next story. I flashed an old lady at the grocery store today. I, 27F, just had a baby. I can't believe I have to make this edit, but I didn't actually pop a baby out and go to Walmart. He was 2 weeks old, and have been dressing very showy to build my confidence back up for myself because since the baby I've had body dysmorphia pretty badly. Today, I wore a mini skirt that has shorts installed into design in a black color and a black, long cardigan over it. A style you probably see often in Korea if you can imagine it. It kind of looks like I'm not wearing any bottoms but you can still see the skirt poking out a bit from the bottom. A lady behind me, probably in her 50s commented, asking why someone as old as me was wearing something so slutty in public. I'm overthinking, it's just a pair of legs. But she's actually scolding me in public, raising her voice and her husband is just looking away in embarrassment. To piss her off since she already caused a scene, since she also didn't know the skirt was paired with shorts, I ran my finger up my leg, looked her dead in the eyes, began lifting my skirt about an inch and asked, "Would you rather me take it off?" In my most sultry voice possible. Her husband was like eyes. She started freaking out and said I should change into something more appropriate and even rudely offered to buy me trousers, and told me again to take my skirt off so. I just looked at her, I looked at her husband and smiled. And then wide-eyed I screamed like pretty loudly and lifted my skirt and flashed her. Of course, there was shorts underneath and nobody saw anything but her initial reaction was disgust and red-faced anger. She screamed too. Her husband was laughing. Everyone was looking at me like was crazy. Maybe I am. The end. Next story. My stepmom made me have a beard at 14, as a girl. Let me explain. I have PCOS, which means I have a lot more testosterone than the normal woman. Side effects include having thick, dark hair in areas such as the face, neck, backs, and chest. When I was a teenager, my stepmom used to forbid me from touching my own facial hair, and would only do it herself, like every 4 to 6 months. Consequently, as a young teenage girl I used to walk around my house with a short beard. I wore a headscarf outside so others would not notice. I wanted to share this to say to parents with girls that have PCOS, please don't do things like this. It broke the way I viewed myself. I've always struggled with my femininity and since I was young I felt like I had a disgusting, unlovable body. My brother used to make fun of me for it. It seemed so unfair to have to look in the mirror and see facial hair when I was supposed to be a young girl. I also just wanted to share with any ladies that have PCOS, that I know it's hard, but it doesn't mean you are not beautiful. You are as valid as women as anyone else. You're not alone when you have to do things like shave your face every day, or spend hundreds on hair removal items, or have acne. I get you. And others do too. You are beautiful. Stay strong, people raised fist. Next one. I once did a number 2 in while inner tubing and it haunts me still. When I, 25F, was 17 I went to visit my sister, 21 at the time, out of state for a week during the summer. She had plans to go tubing with a group of friends during the time I was there, so I tagged along. It was a several-hour-long tubing trip down a long and wide river. We were all drinking, and at one point I realized I really had to take a dump. I kind of panicked a little, and I asked my brother-in-law what I should do, because I knew I couldn't have the whole group pull off and stop to wait for me to poop and I didn't want to get left behind as I had no idea where the campsite was we were going to be stopping at. He very nonchalantly, and drunkly, told me to just pull back real quick and go in the river. So I got just far enough behind to pull off to the side so I could inconspicuously pull my swimsuit to the side and drop a couple logs while still kind of floating down the river. It was a clean one and I went about the trip hardly even thinking of it. But now, it kind of haunts me. Edit, certainly did not expect this to garner so much attention. I'm definitely relieved to know this is not the biggest crime in humanity, and I can look back on it as a funny story instead of a mark on my character. I love hearing everyone's aqua dump stories. Next one. I cannot stop sleeping on the floor, it's bloody amazing. Against the judgmental stares and grumbles of my partner and family, I, 20F, cannot stop sleeping on the floor. Ever since a mind-melting hangover had me on the floor, cradled in a duvet alongside my open sliding door, whenever possible I am sleeping on the cold hard floor. I'm currently stressed in summer school, and the one thing that keeps me pushing through 4-hour 5% quizzes of programs on programs is the promise of finally returning home to curl up on my floor. Not to cry lol but to straight up curl up in a corner, turn on a podcast, and pass out. I haven't slept this well in months. The floor is so kind, comforting, and welcoming to me. I wake up with a good back, good neck, good hips, stuff that I've groaned about in my very lovely, albeit not firm enough bed. It's at the point where when I stay the night at my boyfriend's place, I lay awake and stare at the floor as he snores like a damn tractor beside me. It's just so good and I cannot rate it enough. I may be exhausted and a little hysterical as I continue my studies late into the year, in my country anyways, but good God, do I love my floor. Next bed might just be a very thin futon if this floor business holds up. Anyways, thanks for reading, had to share.